Okay, I should be live. I'm going to wait a minute or two so some people can come in, and I'll try to check this out. I'm Mike Turber, 5x5 News, and tonight we'll have a special guest with us. That will be Jack Sarfatti. So he'll be here in just a few minutes. As he loads in, I'm going to grab the code for this stream and send it out, and we will share some information with you. A lot has happened in the last few weeks, quite a bit actually. So I'm going to turn this off for just a second, and you guys hang tight. I'll be right back. If you're on Facebook and this is coming through, the Facebook feed does not allow you to actually post questions or whatever. It doesn't link in with YouTube. So go to my YouTube channel, which is 5x5 News, youtube.com/5x5 News US, or just search for 5x5 News and we should pop right up. So that should be fairly easy to get to. And from there, you'll be able to actually do your questions and what have you. I'm going to share a screen here for just a second. Let's see if this screen share is working properly. And we get to pick this one right here. It doesn't show that one, but there it is. So in the background, we're going to share, there's no audio on that screen, I don't think, but this is actually a tour of San Clemente Island, which has been brought up recently by others as well, which is good. And let me scan this back here to the beginning of this. And we're going to go over this. If you have an opportunity, one of the things to look at is to take Google Earth and fly around. There's Jack. Let's see here. Add him. Hey, Jack. How you doing?
Good. There's a lot of important new developments today, the last hour or two.
Quite a bit.
Yeah. I don't know. Are you aware of number one, John Alexander's interview with George Knapp, and also, but even more important, is over an hour interview with Rudy Giuliani and Nick Pope.
Right.
And the important thing is at the very end, I don't know if you probably didn't hear this because I was just listening to it. At the very end, Giuliani says very clearly, not only that both Obama and Trump take it seriously, take this matter very seriously, and they want to know what the hell is going on. So it's cross-party line. That was a very interesting thing. You know, of course, Giuliani has the ear of Trump. He knows what Trump is thinking, right? And also,
right.
But and Obama's come out publicly.
So I did see an email where you apparently finally between you and John Alexander there was something where you guys might agree on something. Is that earth-shattering news?
That's a miracle, right? That's a miracle, right? No, I mean, John said a lot of things. Some I agree, some actually he was more not as he likes to play games in the email thing.
Okay.
And I play back with him. But the thing is this: what John did say, which by the way, Nick Pope corroborated, that what's wrong with what you're saying. See, you're both right and wrong. Everything you say about the videos may be correct. Especially that thing about that particular video where you did the little triangle, the Pythagorean theorem, and all that. That might be right. The thing is going 40 miles an hour, yeah. But it's that they have multi-sensory. They have all these different multi-sensory evidence, and even if you threw out those videos, there's plenty of evidence there. And there's stuff that they're not showing that's classified.
Right.
Clearly, what's going on. Also, I should say, I got to be very careful about how I say this. Today, I am told by an Army intelligence person I'm in touch with, there was a meeting today with admirals and generals, and my physics work did come up, and apparently, especially the U.S. Navy is tracking what I'm doing very closely. So it's not as bad as I thought. And of course, we know the Russians are doing it. You saw this thing that That's their Science City.
Right.
That in the last week, the most tracking of some videos I'm putting up on I guess it's LinkedIn. Yeah,
LinkedIn.
Yeah, I think LinkedIn is coming from that Science City right outside of Moscow, 27 miles outside of Moscow, where the Landau Institute of Theoretical Physics, all kinds of Academy of Science, that the physicists there are tracking it. Of course, I know they were tracking it anyway, from other reasons. So are we live right now? By the way, are we actually on? Is this...
we are live. I'm glad. I'm glad you asked.
All right, good.
We could have said a few things that probably would have got us in trouble.
No. But the thing is, okay. So we have a lot of topics now. We have, we have the Russians. Evidence that high-level Russians are tracking Jack Sarfatti's physics explanation with Professor Keith Wanzer from Cal State Fullerton, that the Russians are tracking it, which I knew anyway because they videoed me on this stuff a couple of years ago. Putin's agents came and videoed me here in San Francisco at the San Francisco Art Institute for about 2 hours, and when Obama was president, like in 2014.
I remember you were in Orlando at one point when they.
Orlando, yeah. This is very important. This is October, the end of October, 2011.
Mm-hmm.
I was working with General Pete Worden, who was the head of informally with Pete Worden, who was he's Air Force general, retired, was head of the Space Command when he was in the Air Force, and he at that time in 2010, 2011, he was the administrator of NASA Ames here. Okay,
right,
and I was on the initial committee of 30 that set up the 100-year Starship project. We're part of a DARPA NASA program. Craig Ventnor was there. All kinds of big shots were there, and we set this thing up at here in San Francisco. And then a few months later, they had this meeting in Orlando, Florida, and I was paid by NASA money to fly out there and give an invited talk. In fact, Sharon Weinberg, if you go on the BBC website, Sharon Weinberg writes an article about what happened, because while there, and by the way, Eric Davis was there. He was like, Eric Davis was there, and John Kramer, a bunch of guys. And I started talking about how you can have low power warp drive with metamaterials, right? 2011. With metamaterials, that would explain flying saucers, UFOs.
Right.
As soon as I put the word flying saucers, Eric Davis got into a fit, even though we know he's part of this thing, right? They were all like scared. They're afraid of losing their fun, the woo-woo factor.
Right.
And it was a big fight with them, a big argument, in front of the 1,000 people on this very topic. And it was such a brouhaha that Sharon Weinberg, a defense journalist in Washington, she wrote an article. You see it on the BBC website.
Mm-hmm.
And then Gary Beckham wrote an article. But in any case, of course, the Russians were there.
Of course.
Not be there, right?
That you have a tracker on you. They're following you everywhere.
No, so I got a chip in my up my ass.
No.
But in any case, listen, the thing is this, the Russians, I've been in touch with Russian scientists since the 1970s.
Right.
Because I was sent. Basically, it was basically a CIA operation. Although I was sent to to Trieste in 1973. Trieste, the International Center for Theoretical Physics,
right,
which was set up as part of the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Authority, and UNESCO at the time. And it was a place. This is the Cold War. Remember, it's 1973. Right. And this is where Russian physicists, American physicists, European physicists, and especially Middle Eastern, African, Indian, all over. And I was almost a year there, an academic year, and I met all kinds of people. I went into the East Europe, since during the Cold War, and I was at the Ljubljana Nuclear Institute. So the Russians have been aware of me for a long time. And then, of course, in early 1980s, in the Reagan administration, I was like the informal science advisor to the Institute for Contemporary Studies, which was a Reagan think tank that was set up by Cap Weinberger, Ed Meese, Milton Friedman, was run by Laurie Chickering, who was a friend of mine, and we helped formulate the Strategic Defense Initiative. And we were also in touch with Russians, through the Estlin connection, Arbatov, what was it called, the Institute of U.S. and Canada were involved, and this guy Igor Aksharin from the Russian Academy of Sciences in Moscow was in touch with me, and we were going back and forth, like back end discussions. Mm-hmm. So the Russians, they know who Jack Sarfatti is, and in fact, you'll see there's a video of me on Russian news. Talking about a lot of things, but won't go into all that. So in any case, so this is a fact. This is a fact. So the point, the Russians take me seriously, take what I'm working on seriously in terms of physics, and been having problems, apparently. I thought, with Chris Mellon and Elizondo and kind of gaslighting me. But according to what I heard today, especially the U.S. Navy is on top of this. So hopefully that report that was just given about an hour ago, actually, hopefully that's a true report.
The report's out, or which report?
No, I'm sorry. The report about the meeting in which
okay,
with these generals and admirals somewhere, in the Pentagon. That was just in the last few hours, according to my information. I don't, that's what I was told.
Gotcha. I've been in touch with Marco Rubio's office, and apparently the report, I guess, is going to be delayed somewhat, but they have until June 25th. So that date is still on the calendar. But there was I think you and I both saw it. Spokane, Washington, or somebody said that it was coming out yesterday or something. It's all messed up.
Yes, yeah. Listen, do me a favor.
Yeah.
Please tell your contact at Rubio about what I'm doing, that I could answer his questions. He should talk to me and Keith Wanzer. He should give a point of view. He doesn't have to agree.
Well, hopefully I'll be meeting again next. I don't know which day it is. Probably next Tuesday or Wednesday. But the idea is to from my perspective. Obviously, you and I differ on some of our perspectives, but we don't
really. Yeah. I think. Listen, here's the thing. Here's the thing. I respect your expertise in your intelligence work and evaluating videos. I don't pretend to know anything about that. I'm a theoretical. I do mathematics.
Yeah, you do it quite well.
I do mathematical models. I'm a theoretical physicist. We do a certain thing, but so I don't. That's your expertise, and I'm willing to even suppose you're right. It doesn't matter though if you're right.
Well, I think we supplement each other, and you're right. It doesn't, because your work still stands. It doesn't. What I'm doing is it has no effect on your work really at all.
But also what both Nick Pope said today, and who was the other guy, and Alexander. I don't know if we could trust Alexander, but I know Nick Pope. I had drinks with him in pubs in London. He's a good guy. Nick Pope, he's an honest man. He doesn't know enough physics. That's his only, but that's not his fault. He was a liberal arts graduate, and he was drafted into working on this at the Ministry of Defense. And he's a good guy. He's a solid guy. And Nick says there's definitely a lot of other evidence that's independent of that particular video. That's classified evidence. That's why they're taking it seriously. If it was just those videos, I agree with you. Those videos, who knows? However, by the way, you have to look at the Giuliani tape, from beginning to end. When you get, because they have a version of the video which is different from anything that I think you and I have seen. It's much longer. They have a much longer video. It's much clearer, and they have a lot of dialogue between the pilots. What they're saying.
In which video? Which specific?
I'm not. It's one. It's
one of the three.
One of the three, but I'm not. Okay. I don't know the names. I forget the name. Which is which is the gimbal, which is to go fast. Well, but it's one of them, and it's a lot longer. It's clearer. The resolution's much better, and there's a lot about 3 or 4 Navy pilots, maybe, or 2 or 3 Navy pilots talking to each other in great detail what they're seeing.
Okay. Well, that's probably going to be one of the more recent. That's probably gimbal or go fast, one of those two. That would be.
But it's a version I haven't seen before that somehow Giuliani hold of.
Well, that'll be excellent. And I'm sure everybody will want to see that. The thing about the videos is all 3 of the videos from TTSA, the videos from Corbell, even some of the stuff from others, they're chopped from the middle. It's like you don't see the beginning, so you don't see the ramp up to seeing the object, and you don't see what happens at the end. I mean, it just cut in the middle. Here it is, and we're going to make it a huge mystery because we're not going to tell you how we found it. We're not going to tell you how we left it. Yeah. And that creates more questions than anything. And it's very.
Yeah, by the way, it's clear to me that Corbell is sort of maybe a one notch above. Who's the rock star from TTS? I forget his name.
Tom DeLonge.
Tom DeLonge.
Yeah.
Corbell. I mean, they mean well. But Corbell, he doesn't know any science really. He's a filmmaker, and he's with a ponytail, whatever. He's a and he's just being used.
Yeah, I think I have a small theory about that because TTSA, when they got the videos through Mellon and through Lou Elizondo, and Chris Mellon, he admitted that he got those surreptitiously. He said he went didn't do everything above board to get those videos. He actually admitted it, so it's not me making up conjecture or whatever. He said it, not me. So he got those videos out of there. And TTSA had those, but they never came out with anything else. So, and then Chris Mellon, of course, and Lou have left TTSA. And now the videos or anything that seems to be coming out with the blessing of DOD seems to be coming from somewhere else. It's now you got Corbell, you've got George Knapp, both of them bringing out videos. So I'm wondering if the milk has soured between the TTSA organization and DOD since Lou and Chris have left. I mean, that's the only thing I could think of.
I told you about my connection with the TTSA, didn't I? I was in London at the end of October in 2017 at a physics meeting with at the University of London about 100-year anniversary of David Bohm. Was a top physicist, worked with Einstein. I worked with David Bohm around 1971 in London at Birkbeck College. In any case, Kit Green was there with Hal Puthoff. And so I was hanging out with them.
Yeah.
In fact, I was at this big dinner that they gave, for, at the Temple, which is a very exclusive place in London. Mm-hmm. And then I took them. The next day, I took them with me to I belong to a very exclusive London club, which during World War II was called the Spies Club. And John Le Carre was a member. He just recently died. But in any case, all these MI5, MI6 military. One of the guys, one of my people I had lunch with, he was a retired head of the GCHQ. Mm-hmm. Another is retired admiral, head of British Naval Intelligence, and I would lecture there, and they're very interested in what I'm doing.
Yeah, well, cool. I had a quick run-in with British intelligence actually recently, believe it or not, with the Las Vegas case. There was a situation that happened where the police were turning off their body-worn cameras. I know this is unrelated to what we're doing here, but they turned off their body-worn cameras and no one could figure out what was going on, and come to find out that there was a certain individual that was at that concert that night during the shooting, and they turned off their cameras so that no one would see who this individual was. Can't say who the person is yet, but I've got some Las Vegas crowd in here.
Yeah, let me just ask you a question.
Sure.
Now, was that an attack on Trump supporters, on right-wingers?
Well, remember early on, that was part of the questioning as to did he hate Trump or did he have Trump? But he had no political affiliation pretty much with anything. It was not about that. Although naturally, you look at a country concert, you're going to have a larger representation of the Republicans.
It was country music, so they were mostly people who would be at Trump rallies who would right?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So it was like the guy who shot Scalise. Yeah. All right. Well, let's get back. So, in any case, I took Puthoff and Kit Green to my club for to dinner, and then I was with a lady I know who's very well connected, high up in the British establishment, wealthy lady, and she took us to the Athenaeum Club for drinks. So they were very, they got to see that part of that level of British society. But the point is that when I was with them, in their hotel room at their meeting.
Mhm.
Either they kept getting phone calls from Washington,
Mm.
and at different points in time, Hal Puthoff would run out, because they didn't want me to hear what they were talking about, and or Kit Green would run out. Well, obviously, they were setting up this thing, the whole release. This is like October 28th, 2017.
Oh wow, that's recent. Okay, yeah, that was about the time I got my call too. I got a call about then saying that something's coming out, and it was kind of weird. The forecast of it. Of course, the intelligence community gets hold of a lot of things, but so weird times we live in. So hopefully this report, which is coming out, which I know there's some question as to what might be on it. We don't know what's going to be on it. We don't really, we can't say with any conviction or whatever. But if you had to take a best guess, what do you think it's going to say?
I don't know. Excuse me. There's this guy, Larry Lemke, who I work with. Larry is retired from NASA. He was with me in Florida and this other thing. He's a top aerospace engineer who's also like the NASA liaison with Langley, CIA in Langley. And
get a drink.
And I better take a drink. I get hoarse easily. But Larry says the report, and he has access of some sort, more than I do. He says they're only they're not, their mission is not to try to explain the phenomenon, which is what I'm doing.
Right.
Their mission is only kind of like what you're doing, to just assemble the data, the raw data, without trying to interpret it. So I don't know. I don't expect much from the report. Only that that the thing is real. That this is a real thing. It's not fake.
Yeah.
Well, what came out just about an hour ago in the New York Times, I think.
Oh, what it did?
That's what I saw on Twitter. I don't know. I don't know if it's fake news or not. But they said something that the report that there's an article in the New York Times that just came out an hour ago. So I think what I gather, and I don't know if this is accurate, but they're saying that the stuff is real. They don't know what it is.
Yeah, well, here's the funny thing is, whenever someone says that UFOs are real, what are they saying? They're saying that unidentified flying objects are actually unidentified flying objects.
Yeah, no, it was a little bit more. That was my fault.
Yeah,
I think they said it's not U.S. technology. It is technology, and they don't know whose it is. They leave open the possibility it's extraterrestrial. But they said it's not U.S. military technology, but it is technology.
Okay. Well, I wish the problem is that each video is that we see the information that we've seen so far. Now this doesn't mean I'm going into the other reports and the other UFO sightings and stuff like this, but we're just talking about the ones that we know are going to be in the report. Those have been fairly well debunked.
I think you're right. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I've been to your expertise on this. This is not my thing. The only I wonder what Bruce Maccabee is pretty. He's been sick. Have you been in touch with Bruce Maccabee?
Not recently, no, I have not.
But you know who he is, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And so I mean, he would be qualified, and but I'm certainly not.
Well, one of the things I'm thinking is that when the report does come out, if it mentions the objects that they've already released that we've seen, and they go a different path other than how they've been debunked, it's going to create issues for both sides, because mainly, obviously, the UFO community is going to be upset if they say that the objects are prosaic. The non-UFO community, or the debunker side community, whatever you want to call it, skeptic community, won't be upset necessarily if they say it's something else. It'll be kind of interesting to see how they spin it and how they can bring that to fruition. But I just don't see them coming out and saying that these things are extraterrestrial at all.
But they didn't say they're not extraterrestrial.
True.
Okay.
So they're going to keep that mystery going that way. That whatever department that they set up can stay alive.
Yeah, and that's what pisses me off personally, because let's put it this way. There are strict laws of nature, basically the Einstein general theory of relativity, the gravitational field, and within those laws, there's a simple explanation for the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's destroy. I mean, it's like the biggest thing in the history of physics, of history of science. It's going to totally change civilization. Basically, we're making Star Trek real.
Yeah. Okay? And speaking of that, one of the questions is about the technology that's necessary. One of the people in there is asking a question of describing a Tic Tac and how it works in as layman terms as possible, so that someone who can watch this show can go out and try to not necessarily re-explain the physics of it, but at least the idea, the premise of how it works. You want to try to take a stab at it, or I'll try to interpret you?
No, let me. Yeah, I can do it.
Okay.
What's happening? There's this stuff called metamaterials. Louis Elizondo and Hal Puthoff, they keep talking metamaterials. You've heard the phrase metamaterials, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they never explain how the metamaterials allow control of the craft and how it flies. But it's basically very simple. What happens with the metamaterial is that if you insert or you pump electromagnetic energy into the magnetic material in a resonant way, what it can do, it can create a very strong gravitational field inside the metamaterial. And that gravitational field basically cancels out the Earth's gravitational field, allowing flight, okay? And also you can either generate within the metamaterial fuselage, the shell. The Tic Tac is like a shell of this metamaterial, and it has a source of energy that's putting electromagnetic fields inside that metamaterial shell. And the way you phase it, what's called a phase shift, you're able to either make a repulsive gravity field, what's called anti-gravity, or an attractive gravity field. These are artificial gravity fields which can then superpose with the Earth's field and can cancel it out.
Okay.
So what's happening is that's what they're doing, and the acceleration. See, people don't understand motion. There's two different. Even engineers don't understand motion and acceleration. They understand it from a common sense, old physics, Newtonian physics point of view, but they don't understand it from the Einstein general relativity point of view. And there are two different kinds of acceleration. There's G-force, the G-force that you feel when you're in your race car and or a fast car, or if you're in an elevator and it suddenly goes up, you feel that force, and then you feel a little lighter if it goes down. So the G-force is what's called proper acceleration, and that's what's inside there's zero G-force inside the Tic Tac, even though for the external observer, for the guy who's like Commander Fravo, who's watching from the outside using radiation, using light signals and infrared radiation signals, that the apparent what's called the kinematic acceleration could be like 1,000 G, but inside it's 0 G, because what's happening is that the craft is controlling the gravitational field, which is the curving or the warping of space and time, inside that fuselage, that metamaterial. It's controlling that gravitational field there. So what's happening? The Tic Tac is just weightless. It's freely falling through its own gravitational field that it's controlling with small amounts of energy.
Okay. So the other thought process is that an object that's in a warp bubble cannot interact directly with the world outside of it.
That turns out, yeah, I know they say that, but they made a mistake. I found out they made an elementary mistake. It can't. You can, they can make it so it can't interact. Yeah, but you don't have to do it that way. By the way, I'm glad you brought that up, because one can, for example, make an impenetrable force shield, what's called a white hole event horizon, around the craft, so that you could shoot a missile at the Tic Tac, and it's just going to explode outside. And it's the famous science fiction force shield,
right
out of Star Trek. The force shield. You can make that, but you could shoot stuff out. But nothing can get in. It's what's called a one-way membrane. What it is, it's the time reverse of a black hole. In a black hole, if you fall into the surface or horizon of the black hole, you can fall in, but you can't get out again.
Yeah, and you'll be like stuck. You'll be spaghettified going on through, but you'll be stuck on the event horizon.
Yeah, right. Unless it's a Stargate, that's called. Unless it's a traversable wormhole.
We got somebody who wants to talk about Stargate. Of course, I think they're coding it a little bit here with some cicada, which would go into my area here. But does any of that mean anything to you?
I'm sorry, but say that. Where are you? I don't see
take a look at the screen here if you can see that. It says talk about Stargate Cicada 3301 Aquino. Thomas Schoenberger.
Okay. So which one are you talking about now? I see Jeff Ferdner.
No, this is should be on the regular screen. I'll read it to you. It says talk about Stargate Cicada 3301 Aquino.
I don't know Cicada 33. What's that?
I know. I think what he's doing is someone's talking.
I see.
Hacking code.
I don't know what he's talking about.
He's talking about hacking code. Let me pull this up here, and I'll get a real screen. I'll show you. So basically,
let me talk to magic here. Does that mean it eliminate? No, it doesn't eliminate inertia. That's a complete misunderstanding of basic physics. Inertia has nothing to do with it. What happens? It's called the equivalence principle, the general theory of relativity. Inertia, or rest mass of the craft, drops out. It's in the equivalence principle. All objects fall the same way in a gravitational field, independent of their inertia. It has nothing to do with inertia. That's a total confusion that people make. I don't understand. They just don't understand. You couldn't pass a high school physics course saying something like that. So it's complete ignorance of basic physics. And this gets down to the fact that the educational system in America is really dumbed down. They're not teaching science properly.
That's true too.
And you see that affects. This is very important for national security, because even the people in the Pentagon, the military, and even Chris Nolan and Elizondo, they don't know enough physics to think about this in the right way.
But Lou is trying. He's going that direction.
Yeah. Hey, Lou is trying. Look, Lou's I'm sure Lou is a patriot, and I'm sure he did a lot of important things in the military, but that doesn't qualify him for this job, where you have to basically have a PhD understanding of physics to understand what's going on.
Of course.
The same for Chris Mellon. I mean, Chris Mellon, he was an undergraduate in history or something like that.
Well, his next question is actually kind of interesting. It says, why would they show up on radar if they are in an envelope? So how would their interaction with radar work? Or they would still show up?
Yeah, of course it does. Yeah. I mean, the radar waves can bounce off still bounce off the craft, but because the gravitational field is being controlled by the craft, what happens is all kinds of distortions of the radar and the optical signals. It's called gravitational lensing.
Right.
And there's a young physicist, he's an astrophysicist, and he has a website called UAP Theory, UAPtheory.com. He explains all this stuff.
Well, I can explain lensing. Basically, what you have is an object that creates a large gravity field, or has a very large mass. Doesn't necessarily have to be huge. Could be 26 miles wide and be a black hole and create a lot of gravity. But the light, anything that heads towards that object will be bent around the object. So if you're looking at something, let's say a lot of times if you're looking in space, you'll see a galaxy, and then you'll see a ring around that galaxy that will be of objects that are behind it. You'll even see a 4-point system where you see 4 galaxies that are identical galaxies. It's the same one. So that's where the gravity affects light waves, or any wave for that matter, going around an object. So
right, yeah, and also if he bounces off, it can do that. But the thing is, you can see this movie, the movie Interstellar, talks about all this.
Does a pretty good job.
Yeah, well, yeah, because Kip Thorne, who's the top relativist in the world, maybe, he's technical advisor on that movie. A Caltech professor of physics. So I actually helped him move into his house when he first became professor at Caltech back in 1967. I was with Dick Feynman, and we helped him move in.
I was 1 year old.
Yeah, right.
I was one. I was actually born on November 18th, 1966. And if you look that date up, I was born during the largest meteor shower ever witnessed by man, 250,000 meteors per hour.
Oh, yes.
So that's probably why I'm interested in space, I guess. Who knows?
Okay. Okay. So it says, how much energy would it require to generate one of these? Small amounts. That's the whole point. Small amounts.
That's where the metamaterials come into play.
Yeah, right. Maybe one AAA battery might do it. Energize a bunny can do it. You don't need a lot of energy. That's the whole point.
That was our first argument. That was the very first thing you heard. Was I said that it would be almost impossible to achieve that warp speed or achieve the speed of light, because the amount of energy necessary would basically be all the energy.
And we found, I found out what's wrong with that. That's a mistake.
Yeah.
People are making a mistake. Actually, a very elementary mistake. You know why? Because technically, when you look at Einstein's theory, the coupling between an applied, say, electromagnetic field and the gravity field that it generates, that coupling involves the speed of light in the medium, or something like the speed of light in the medium. And what they do in theoretical papers, they set the speed of light equal to 1 right away at the very beginning. And because they don't want to bother with it, because it doesn't even occur to them that might be a mistake. So they made a very elementary, kind of a stupid oversight. Let's put it this way: it's a stupid oversight. They threw the baby out with the bathwater. Well, one reason they did it, because they weren't interested in UFOs.
There you go.
Playing UFOs. If they were, they could have. They would have seen this.
And the speed of light, just in case you're wondering, is 186,282.3976 miles per second in a vacuum.
Yeah, but in matter, you can get it down to almost 1 centimeter a second.
Yep.
But also, there's another thing. I'm oversimplifying. It's not so much the speed of light. It's a much more general thing. It's called the susceptibility response, the electromagnetic susceptibility response function of the metamaterial, which in a certain limiting case is equivalent to like the speed of light. And, it relates to the speed of light. It's Maxwell. This gets back to James Maxwell in Scotland around the time of the American Civil War, unified electricity, magnetism, and light into one. He had the first unified field theory, in which he relates the speed of light to something called the electric permittivity and magnetic permeability of the material. In which case, the vacuum itself is like a material in that sense. The vacuum has magnetic permeability, and the vacuum also has electrical permittivity, because we now know in quantum electrodynamics, we now know that what the vacuum is a bunch of, basically, it's a plasma of electron-positron pairs, also other particles, but the main thing responsible for what we're talking about are what are called virtual electron-positron pairs, like a plasma of positive and negative charges. It's electrically neutral on the whole, and that's what causes the speed of light in vacuum. And similarly, when you get into ordinary matter, which has real charges, the same, very similar thing happens.
And when he measured the speed of light even back then, he was fairly close. There was a couple.
No, wait, you're confusing. That's not the Maxwell measured the speed. All kinds of physicists measured the speed of light. Maxwell was a theoretical physicist like me. He wrote equations.
Okay, there you go.
Equations. He didn't do.
I was trying to remember who was the first to measure it, and actually was fairly accurate. I know Copernicus with the diameter of the Earth and what have you, but
But let's not get into that. But you just read you go to Wikipedia. All kinds of people measured the speed of light. It was already done in the. They got some fairly accurate measurements, I think even in the 18th century. Maxwell is the 19th century. So they already knew the speed of light pretty well.
Yeah.
But
Okay, so here's another question here. Could these objects be able to leave Earth's atmosphere and go to other planets effortlessly?
Yes, Magic. That's correct. That's the whole fucking idea. Not only do they go to other planets, we go to exoplanets on other star systems. Exoplanets. And not only that, we're talking time travel, baby.
Absolutely.
From the future.
And there you go. And Jack, just if anyone doesn't know, I know a couple of people have been here before, but just so you know, your Doc Brown on Back to the Future is based on this man right here. So
that's
we'll run with that.
Yeah, and also my sidekick Nick Kimber Afado. At the time, we were hanging out with these guys. Francis Ford Coppola. This is back in the 1970s, but the middle 1970s in North Beach, San Francisco North Beach. And I met Francis Coppola, and actually met his wife first with this guy, Werner Erhard, who was a kind of a new age. Werner Erhard at that time, he was like Deepak. He was like an evil version of Deepak Chopra.
Yeah. We should have Deepak on here. He could cover some ground that you and I will be missing on some of it. So.
Well, I don't know. Deepak. Yeah, well, Deepak. Oh, let's say he's good about this. He's a medical doctor. He's not a physicist.
Yeah. No, I know. But I'm saying there's some of the like the question I asked him earlier today. I don't know if you saw that, but I sent that kind of in a way for him to possibly respond. But there's a lot of things that could happen. Like if we know disclosure is not going to happen. I mean, it's if anyone out there thinks disclosure is going to happen in this report, unless some crazy thing happens, I don't see it happening. But if it did happen, if all of a sudden the government came out with different evidence than what they've shown so far, and shown us that they've been talking with aliens all this whole time, they have craft, Bob Lazar is telling the truth. I mean, all these different things. It would change a lot. It would be probably the biggest news ever.
Yeah, this is like what do they talk about that Kurzweil? What is he called? The Omega point, not the Omega point. They call
the Kurzweil. You're talking about the Fermi's paradox or the
no. The guy Ray Kurzweil about this transhumanist thing about we become.
Oh yeah, the consciousness thing.
Yeah, the whole consciousness. That's what this is. Let me just say, he asked, could these type of crafts replace fossil fuels? Possibly, yes. Yeah, we're talking about Doc Brown's DeLorean, right?
There you go. The flux capacitor, November 5th, 1955. That was the date.
Well, it turns out the flux capacitor. It turns out you know what metamaterials are. I'm glad you brought that up. One way to think about a metamaterial, a simple case, it's a lattice. It's like a lattice of little flux capacitors circuits.
Yeah. So imagine a lot of capacitive circuits being put together that can hold a ton of energy.
There's small capacitors and solenoids, LCR circuits pumped with energy for what's called. If you go into a physics book, look at Feynman's lectures on physics. Chapter 23, Volume 1, the forced LCR oscillator. That's basically the physics of what's called each little flux capacitor is called a meta atom. You have a lot of meta atoms, and each meta atom is almost like a nerve cell. So the thing is also like a neural network. That's where your computers come in.
So you need to get to work. We need to get this thing done.
Well, I've been trying to get it, but people are too stupid.
It would be nice.
Do anything. And
it would bypass fusion, would it not? I mean, if it would it bypass fusion or would it complement fusion?
Well, I think it would complement fusion. Let's put it this way: you need an external source of energy to power the metamaterial. The metamaterial, if the metamaterial is just sitting there, it's not going to do anything. You have to excite it with electromagnetic energy at resonant frequencies. The right way to do it. And so it would be nice to have a small. Even cold fusion. It'd be nice to have a little cold fusion battery that lasts for 1,000 years, right? That just to power the system. So both of them are necessary. They complement each other.
Jack, do you believe in extraterrestrial aliens visiting Earth?
Sure. most likely. Well, there's plenty of evidence. I mean, that's a whole other thing. Out of my expertise, but you should ask.
What about ultra terrestrials? A lot of people. I don't think that's a term that a lot of people even realize.
Well, you have to define what you mean by an ultra terrestrial. If you mean a super intelligence, sure. Discarnate intelligence, yes. That's
us coming back from the future, which is what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean the point. Okay, first of all, let me go back to the CIA around the early 1970s. Okay, let me go back to 1973. 1973, 20 years after my close
phone call.
Yeah, it was actually weeks of phone calls, but that's another stuff. But where I'm at Stanford Research Institute with astronaut Edgar Mitchell and Hal Puthoff and Russell Targ and all these guys, and even then, the idea that flying saucers are from the future, that idea comes up. In fact, you can hear part of that conversation, the actual conversation, the meeting in 1973 at Dean Brown's house. It's up on the internet, about an hour and a half. It was actually longer. It's only an excerpt.
Is that the recording that's from CIA or which?
Well, I think, yeah. Well, obviously, somebody. I didn't make the recording. I didn't make the recording. Somebody made the recording. There was, it's out.
It just showed up.
Yeah, it showed up, and there I am talking about what happened in 1953, and it's very interesting. So the point is, everything I'm saying sounds pretty crazy, science fiction, but it can be. I'm a smart guy. Everything is, it'll stand up in a court of law under investigation. Okay,
that's my goal too.
Yeah.
And some of the people in here know me from the Vegas case and some other cases. Anything that I do, I try to make certain that when I actually present the evidence, something that's tangible, something that's in my hand, something that's legitimate, that it will stand up in court. Because some of the stuff, like I work with attorneys all the time, and I have to get stuff ready for court, which is why some people argue so much on here as to why it is I can't just accept things. I don't. I have to. My brain is wired differently, so I have to go that route. So, what happened to cold fusion, and why hasn't it taken off?
I don't follow that very closely, but there's a guy, a Nobel Prize physicist named Brian Josephson over at Cambridge. He's part of our
group, yeah.
And he follows it. He thinks it's real. I hope.
I can explain a little bit as it relates to the UFOs. Back in probably 2012 or 2011, and also previous to that, there was a company called EMC2, and that company was contracted by the Navy to build a small fusion reactor that could be used in a plane or just to make fusion reactors smaller. We're talking the size of, say, this desk area here.
That was a hot fusion, wasn't it? Was it cold fusion or hot fusion?
Yeah, that was hot fusion. That was hot fusion. Yeah. And cold fusion, the pursuit of that has to deal with quite a few other things. A lot more technology has to go into place for cold fusion to work as opposed to hot fusion. Hot fusion is something that we can do right now. It's just how much energy you're putting into the device that's creating it.
It's not practical as far as I know at the moment. Unless it's secret. They could be secret.
Yeah, and there's there's Lockheed Skunk Works was working on a fusion reactor, and they said in 2014 that reactor would be put into place. And then, of course, Sal Payas, he his patents.
But
it's all junk.
Yeah, it's all junk. But the thing is this: it wouldn't surprise me. Let's put it this way: hot fusion was a big topic when I was a graduate student at UCSD in La Jolla at Revelle College back in 1966, 1967, around that time. And General Atomics, General Atomics was right next, a neighbor of UCSD. So Rosenbluth, some top guys in hot fusion were working there, and a lot of money's been poured into that. And so if in the last 50, 60 years they haven't come up with a small compact fusion reactor, then there's some kind of boon on it.
Right.
pretty
And
bad.
there's so many companies came out and said, "Oh, we're within a year," or they all had these predictions, and that was just to get money to put into.
Either that, or hopefully they do have something that's highly classified. That could be.
Yep.
They would use them in submarines. They would use them in aircraft. Sure.
Right. And that's also where a lot of belief is that these objects are visiting nuclear facilities because they have an interest in that for some reason.
Oh, well, yeah, okay. Okay, that's a whole other topic.
Yep.
And apparently that's real. I know, what's his name? John Peniston got in touch with me, the guy from Rendlesham.
Yeah.
He sent me his book. So that's real. And so why could that be? So, and apparently, this is happening to the Russians too. So it's not just Russians spying on America and vice versa. The Russian Navy is having similar contacts like the U.S. Navy.
Da, по-русски.
Yeah, and that's why the Russians are really interested in this also, with good reason. So that's why I think they're coming back from the future. But, okay, wait, it's a big universe.
Yeah.
Big universe.
Could be coming from anywhere. Oh, yeah.
Like the Star Wars, the bar scene in Star Wars, all kinds of aliens. This technology, Tic Tac technology, low power warp drive, and also Stargate technology is basically elementary physics.
So is a Stargate a wormhole, or is a Stargate something else?
No, Stargate is a traversable wormhole, but it's the same physics, the same warp drive and Stargates. It's basically the same equation applied with different what are called boundary conditions. See what happens. What is theoretical physics? Einstein's theory of gravity, Maxwell's theory of electromagnetism. They are called, at least at the classical level, they're described by what are called partial differential equations. Those are the laws of nature. The laws of nature are partial differential equations of fields. Okay, the classical laws of nature, at least. And in order to solve them, you have to have specified certain boundary conditions. For example, the fuselage of the Tic Tac that imposes a boundary condition. And the only difference. Let me finish. The only difference between a traversable wormhole and a warp drive is in the nature of the boundary conditions. It's the same partial differential equation, but being set up with different kinds of boundary conditions.
Okay, so would a Stargate / wormhole, would that be something that has a permanent fixed entry point and fixed exit point?
No, that's all flexible. It's all throw it. Okay, wait. Let's talk about Skinwalker Ranch.
There you go.
Okay, History Channel, Skinwalker Ranch. The history, Bob Bigelow,
right?
This Mormon guy, rich guy, and then he sold to Brandon Fugel,
right?
And then this guy Travis Taylor, who works. Okay, here's the thing, they think, and also even Eric Davis and Jacques Vallée wrote a paper called High Strangeness that Bob Bigelow, I think, when he was running National Institute for Discovery Science in Las Vegas. George Knapp is a buddy of Bob Bigelow's.
Yeah.
Although Bob Bigelow should have contacted me years ago, but didn't. Yeah. All right.
I actually, when I was doing the Vegas thing, I actually stumbled across some communications between Harry Reid and Bigelow.
Yeah.
And that was pretty.
All part of the same local Vegas mafia, but whatever. Any case, I mean that in quotes. But in any case, Eric Davis and Vallée talk about a Sasquatch Bigfoot type creature coming out of a hovering wormhole portal on the ranch, on the Skinwalker Ranch in Utah. Okay. It's published.
Yeah. Well, then it must be true.
But I'm accepting it as true.
I try to accept it as things as true until I have reason to believe otherwise.
Although I have my,
but it's Eric Davis.
I have my disagreements with Eric Davis. I don't think he would lie about that. I don't think he would lie about that. And I know Jacques Vallée from a long time ago.
Jack is a little different. Of course, my relationship with Eric Davis has been, as you know, you've seen it firsthand.
Yeah, I have the same kind of relationship. But the thing is this: let's get back to the latest thing. History Channel. This guy, one of the guys working there, got some kind of brain problem. And even Travis Taylor, I think, says that he himself got radiation sickness. But here's the thing now. If you have a Stargate portal, which is basically like a hovering Tic Tac, basically, if it's hovering 1,000 feet above the ranch at this spot, okay, and if you stand under that thing, you're going to get radiation sickness, because it turns out the way it worked, the way Einstein's equation works, in order for an object to hover at a fixed distance in the Earth's gravitational field, it has to have at the base. Think of it as like a flying saucer. So the flat base. You're underneath the base of this thing. Okay.
Yeah, stay away when the blue light's on.
Yeah. Well, it's going to create a gravitational blue shift, which means that any atmospheric particles that are underneath it are going to get energy. They're going to increase their energy. So it's going to create ionizing radiation, and like radioactivity, artificial radioactivity, and that can cause radiation sickness. Right. Now, Hal Puthoff, in his various talks, has slides about this, and apparently Kit Green, works with Hal. Right. Kit Green was a CIA doctor. Right. Kit Green has all kinds of data on people who have been close to flying saucers who have like radiation sickness. So that's what's called the anti-gravitational blue shift, which is a signature of warp drive. In other words,
right.
Like for example, if you have a Tic Tac that's coming toward you, I think we've discussed this before.
Yep.
If the Tic Tac is coming, it's the reverse Doppler effect. Tic Tac coming toward you should actually look a little bit redder rather than bluer. And a Tic Tac receding from you will look redder and not will look bluer and not redder.
Right.
So so there's just the opposite to the motional Doppler shift, because in warp drive the object is not actually moving through space; it's the space that's moving.
Right.
The object is like standing still in space. So that's why when you can't really talk about the speed of a Tic Tac.
Right.
The acceleration of a Tic Tac. Effectively, it's like speed without speed, acceleration with acceleration.
Yeah.
You get from one place to the other as if it was going very fast.
Yeah.
That's because you're actually folding space, you're warping space itself, and you're just going along with the space.
It'd be kind of like this thing here. Like if space was linear, and then you wanted to get from point A to point B, you would wrap space back upon itself.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. Yeah.
Yep.
That's kind of what's happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I was a long time ago, somebody would always ask, what's the fastest way to get from point A to point B? And they, on a piece of paper, you draw a straight line. And I just take the piece of paper and fold it that way.
That's it. That's the curving of space and time by energy. But the trick is you have to do with the small amounts of energy. You can't, and that was the trick. The problem that I claim to have solved was how to do all this with small amounts of energy using metamaterials.
So from a perspective standpoint, if someone's standing somewhere, they're going to see that object. From their perspective, if someone outside the craft would see it like bouncing around or just disappear. Yeah. And then obviously, if you're in the craft, would you see things as they're moving past you? Would it seem like things are moving past you? Like, would you be able to zoom through from here to the sun? Takes 8.5 minutes at the speed of light. So would you visualize the sun just slowly getting larger, or would it look totally different?
I don't. That requires a computation. I can't off the top of my head tell you.
Well, here, let me do that real quick.
Yeah. That's the kind of thing that Kip Thorne. People have solved that problem, but it's not a trivial problem.
Right. Yeah, one of the questions that people brought up is if you're on an object moving at the speed of light and you hold up a flashlight like this,
you're not moving. You're not moving at the speed of light.
Exactly. So but there's no other way to really to say it. So just for the lack of a better term, if you're say moving at the speed of light and you turn a flashlight to the side, the light would technically run over.
That has nothing to do with anything. See, that's
I agree.
I mean, that's not the way the general theory of relativity works. You're not moving through space at any speed. Right. You're actually you're freely floating. You're standing still in space in a sense, and the space itself is what's moving.
Okay, so let me ask you this: if there's several things that have to work properly for the craft to get from point A to point B, move, whatever we want to call it. And one of those is the effect of being able to control gravity. Now, I know.
That's what I'm talking about.
Of course. And of course, there's 2 or 3 different technologies that have to go go in at the same time. One's anti-gravity, one's the propulsion effect, one's various.
No,
it's all works on the same.
One thing. It's all one thing. Well, it's all one thing. What you do, you're controlling what's happening. The fuselage is made up of a bunch of little pixels, like little flux capacitors.
Okay.
The network of flux capacitors. You're controlling the local gravitational field at each flux capacitor. And whether it's going to be attractive or repulsive depends on what's called the phase difference, electrical engineering, the phase difference between the applied electromagnetic field and the output gravitational field. There's a what's called a phase difference. Okay. In electrical engineering, you talk about amplitude and phase of signals.
So the skin of the craft is effectively the engine, the source, everything. So it doesn't have to be much.
It's also the computer.
Which is another question that just came up a few minutes ago about what is your question? What is your thoughts on quantum computing?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, first of all, there are 3 levels of physics. There's classical physics.
Yeah.
Okay, then there's quantum physics. And there's something else now called post-quantum physics. Well, you can think in terms of relativity theory. In Einstein, 1905, he had special theory of relativity. Then 10 years later, he came up with the general theory of relativity because the special theory was not able to explain gravity. And in order to explain gravity, he had to do some more work. And that's the general theory. Well, similarly, in quantum mechanics now, there's a more general, let's call it the quantum mechanics that's taught in colleges and everybody learns. Let's call that special theory of quantum or special.
Okay. All right.
Well,
I'll entertain that.
The general quantum mechanics, which reduces the special in a certain limit. Okay. Just the way general relativity becomes special relativity in a special limiting case. So the point is what you need, the Tic Tac is what's called a post-quantum computer network.
Okay.
And therefore it's conscious because we are living matter. We are post-quantum conscious computers. That's what human beings are. And dogs, cats,
Yeah, everything.
Even individual cells. Because it turns out, okay, let me go. This goes back to the CIA again. In the 1970s, and in fact, there was this guy George Koopman. He was actually Air Force. He was actually Air Force intelligence, but he was funding us for a while. This guy George Koopman, he was killed under weird circumstances going to Edwards Air Force Base. But that's a whole other story.
I'm counting my days.
Okay. In any case, George says to me and Saul Paul Sarag and Fred Allen Wolf. This is back. In 1976, early 19, actually maybe in the end of 1975, around Christmas time, 1975, when this big apartment complex that Lawrence Rockefeller's mistress at the time was paying for, that set us up, this group.
Well, they had the money.
They had the money, and we're right across the street from the big Catholic cathedral on the top of Nob Hill. Right. And George says, okay, but the CIA wants to know, and the Defense Department, they want to know 2 things. How does consciousness work? Okay? And how do flying saucers fly? That's what we want to know. That's our mission. That's what they're paying us to work on, okay?
Excellent. Okay. I think that's a big question too. I think Elon Musk has a lot of questioning going on in that area too.
No, Elon Musk. That's a side issue.
Yeah, I know.
Elon Musk should talk to me. He's not.
Yeah.
Richard Branson got in touch with me. At least somebody says he's on LinkedIn. I don't know if but Branson recently has gotten to somebody claiming to be Richard Branson on the internet
Yeah, that was on a chat session
Yeah,
recently.
well, and LinkedIn. Okay, I don't know if but these guys should be talking to me. Yeah, and so should Jeff Bezos, because they're all pissing away money on stupid firecrackers. They call them rockets. We don't need rockets anymore, guys.
Nope.
You're wasting money on rockets. It's stupid to get into a tin can rocket and try to fly in several months to Mars. That's stupid, because number one, you're going to die. The people are going to get sick from radiation sickness. There's a much easier way to do it. It's like a Polish joke, It's like.
Do you have any idea how much it would cost to do the research to get this done, or is this something we're just going to have to wait for?
It won't cost any more than the idiots and the dumb schmucks are spending now on stupid technology, on rocket ships, on big Chinese firecrackers. That's the dumbest thing. It's really stupid.
Yeah. Plus, it could be a worldwide effort, where we all have a unified space command or some shit.
Yeah. Well, that ain't going to happen, because
I know. I'm dreaming.
But I mean, Jeff Bezos can do it. With 1% of his fortune, he can do it.
Okay.
And so they can do it.
I think Jeff's getting a divorce. He may not have much of that left. We'll see.
Did he get divorced too?
I think he is. I'm trying to remember.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And also Bill Gates was hanging out with him.
And he's getting divorced. And it's the whole world's falling apart for these guys.
So, in any case, so yeah, what were we talking about? Yes. So all this money, all this stuff they're spending in obsolete technology, it's stupid. Now maybe Putin. Okay, Putin has a lot of money. Vladimir Putin, I think, is as rich as Jeff Bezos. A couple of years ago, I heard that Vladimir Putin has 160 billion, and it's probably more than that. That's
probably why you're being monitored. They don't want you giving all this technology to Putin.
No. I mean, they have. Vladimir hasn't invited me to Moscow.
Right.
What's his name? That actor. I know you're talking about.
Yeah. Would you go?
I don't know. I might.
Be the last we ever seen. That was the last we ever saw, Doctor.
Yeah. No, but
I'll go with you.
Yeah,
but I'll be ready to go.
The thing is this: that the Russians are pretty smart. They have smart guys in Russia, and they may be. I suspect they're working on this stuff.
Yeah, they'd have to be. I think China actually, in my opinion, is a little bit ahead in most areas that are of concern.
Okay, here's the thing. I could be very wrong. I'm just giving I could be.
Oh no, I'm just giving out information because.
Okay, here's the thing. The Chinese, though, are not creative.
No, they're not.
They're not creative.
They're getting better, but they're not. You're correct.
Yeah, they're not creative. They're good. They're mimics. They copy well. Okay, and also Clinton helped them copy a lot of our technology. That's something that Ron Pandolfi was involved in exposing. But in any case, the Russians are like us. I mean, the Russians are there are a lot of Jews in Russia. I mean, and the Russians are basically I mean, I have some Russian blood in me, almost everyone. So the Russians are more likely. They're more likely to come up with. Creative. I mean, they have Landau Lifshitz. They have the great Russian physicists, and they have Novikov, who I know works with who's into the whole time travel thing.
Yep.
So they have very smart guys. So the Russians are likely to do, at least theoretically, they're top. Theoretically, they can do it.
Didn't Novikov back in 83, 84? He was working on anti-gravity. Was he the one? Novikov was he working on?
Yeah. Novikov had time travel. Novikov flipped on. In fact, a lot of my stuff is Novikov. Yeah. Oh yeah, Novikov certainly, and Novikov students, they can do everything I'm doing. And I mean, it would take them 5 minutes to see what I'm talking about, and they can run with the ball. And hopefully, that's what they've done. Now, as I said, I wouldn't be surprised if some of this advanced drone stuff in 2019, USS Kidd in the Atlantic, that could be Russian tech. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know if it is or not, but that would not surprise me. That could be Russian tech based on the stuff that I've been talking about.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Or it could have came from this place right over here on the screen. That place right there.
What is that?
That's San Clemente Island. There's been a lot of talk about that.
Yeah, you want. Well,
I'll go into that after.
You should talk to
after.
Kevin Day. Talk to Kevin Day. I think has
Mhm.
gone out there in boats with this guys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've been looking at this spot for a long time. It was brought up on another channel, I think, a few days ago, and I even created this KML file that's playing in the background. I created almost 2 years ago, back when I was looking at it. But there's a lot of stuff that's going on in San Clemente Island, St. Nicholas Island, and some other places, and so I'll get into that later.
Oh, don't forget Antarctica.
There, that's true. And
Before let's get back to what's his name, Doc journalist,
yeah,
with John Warner the Fourth.
Mm-hmm. And John Warner is who related to?
His father was Senator John Warner.
There you go.
Okay, and who's a Mellon? They're all connected with the Mellons.
They're all connected with Mellon, correct?
Yeah, he's Chris Mellon's cousin. They grew up together. Yeah, they know each other. They disagree. Mm-hmm. And so, John Warner's kind of an interesting guy. He's a race car driver. He doesn't know much physics because he thinks Bob Lazar is a real physicist. But Warner's a pretty good guy. I think by looking at that video with Dark Journalist, I got the sense that John Warner is a pretty good judge of character. But he doesn't know the physics of it, No. But basically, he's a lot of things he says. He has a good instinct about certain things,
right?
And
certainly about people.
And basically, he. I'm sort of on the same wavelength with him on a bunch of issues, although not when it comes to Bob Lazar. He doesn't know any physics, and I don't think he pretend that he does. Right. But it's interesting what he did say about Antarctica. Mm-hmm. John Warner the Fourth said about, because his father apparently went there, or his grandfather, was it? And so there's all the stuff that the Navy bases, and also the Nazi stuff.
Right. Well, speaking of Nazi stuff, someone was asking a question about the Nazi anti-gravity bell. If you had any thoughts on that, but we can continue with the Antarctica thing.
Well, they're connected. Okay. Okay. One thing that John Warner the Fourth did say, he was very influenced by Nick Cook's book Hunt for Zero Point, which has all about the Nazi bell is in that book.
Correct.
I know Nick Cook personally. In fact,
and just so you want to tell everybody what 0 point effectively means.
0 point is the energy of the vacuum, and this is Hal Puthoff's big thing. The idea is that you can actually draw energy out of the vacuum. Now, there are reasons to think that will not work. The actual proposals so far really do not work. And there's another reason, because what's called the dark energy density of the vacuum is a lot smaller than everybody thought it would be. Mm-hmm. And the point is, with what I'm talking with the metamaterials, you don't need vacuum energy.
Right.
You don't need it. It totally bypasses that mechanism.
It seems like it's the answer to everything.
No, it's not. I think it's here's the thing. There may be some exchange of energy with the vacuum, but it's a minor effect. What I'm talking about, the way the Tic Tacs really work, they don't need the vacuum energy. Mm-hmm. They don't need it. It's just ordinary electromagnetic energy inside the metamaterial. The metamaterial replaces the vacuum. You don't need the vacuum when you get a metamaterial. It's kind of like it's like a super vacuum. Let's put it that way. In terms of how the electromagnetic field couples to the gravitational warp fields. So, but in any case, but to get back to John Walker said that his grandfather. Remember, these are the Mellons. These are the top guys. They run the country. The Robert Barons. And they still run they're getting less maybe, but they still run the country. I think, the Mellon, John Warner says, the Mellon family, there's about 140 Mellons in the whole family at any one time. Mm-hmm. And in World War II, 40 of them were in the intelligence service.
So is this a similar story to the Rockefeller story / New World Order, Blue Beam?
Yeah, well, Rockefeller was funding my group because through Jean Lanier, through a woman friend of his named Jean Lanier. And I also knew Bootsy Galbraith, who worked with Lawrence Rockefeller. There's a whole, it's all connected. It's a very small group. and since I went to an Ivy League, I went to Cornell, and I sort of, was
Right.
grew up with these people. Yeah. And so in any case, I'm sort of part of that.
Yeah.
They have these, the Jewish intellectuals are part of the WASP. Sort of.
Imagine that. And you're still alive. That's important. So you're in good company. That's a good thing.
Yeah. in any case, but here's the point. What I wanted to get to was that John Warner says his grandfather was Mellon. His grandfather was with General Patton at the end of the war, just a few days before Patton was killed, in the road accident. And they were in this Nazi hangar, this huge hangar, and there were all these V-2 rockets and stuff like that. But he said there was this big flying saucer there. Okay. So this is directly from the horse's mouth, so to speak.
Okay.
It was a Nazi saucer that they had that, and John Warner also said he was very influenced by Nick Cook's book. And I said, I seen Nick Cook in London, where I see him in Italy, and so when I first read Nick Cook's book about this years ago, I kind of poo-pooed it. Because it sounded kind of flaky, the Nazi Bell thing. But now my mind, I'm remaining critical and skeptical, but my mind is more open to it because, as I say, this technology, the Tic Tac flying saucer propulsion technology, is so elementary.
Right.
Once you have the right idea, that which I finally got in around 2010.
That's when you had your eureka moment?
Yeah, I had my eureka moment so around that time. Although we were trying to work on it back in the year 2000 with Joe, there's a whole other thing, but I didn't really have it. I had some of it, but it didn't really gel. But the point is, Einstein, but they had these smart Germans back then in the 1920s. I mean, Einstein could have seen it like right away too, because Einstein he knew the coupling is what's called Newton's G over c to the fourth, which c is the speed of light. So he could have realized immediately. Well, since the speed of light gets smaller in a material, if you had a special material where the speed of light gets very small, and since the denominator to the fourth power, for those who know some math, that you can enhance the coupling between applied electromagnetism and its induced gravitational field. So Einstein could have seen this back then. And certainly the Germans, some of those Germans, and certainly Werner Heisenberg, who, by the way, I knew Heisenberg also. That's a whole other story. Heisenberg could have realized this. But of course they didn't, because if they did, they would have used it.
Right. They would have used it. But they used other technology that they were able to piece together.
So they didn't. But they could have had it. It's not out of the question. The only thing is they didn't have it.
Well, they lacked the tooling and the engineering to create the materials.
They didn't have the materials. They had a little bit more, but they didn't have that, and they didn't have the sophisticated, solid state nanotechnology that we have now. But the other thing,
how close are we? How close are we on the?
That I don't know. I don't think well, I don't know. The Russians may have it, but the point is, nobody here is paying attention to what I and Keith Wasner, are talking about. As far as I know, they're not paying, or they're doing it in secret. I mean, I was told that the Navy is tracking us, so who knows what they're doing. But the point is, there has not been any direct contact between me and people who could do this. Whether they're doing it on the sly because they're afraid to talk to me or whatever, they're afraid I'll talk on the internet. Who the hell knows?
I'd have to take you on a trip to DARPA or to Wright Pat or a couple other places I could think of.
Well, I'm not going to go on any trips because we could do it all by encrypted Zoom. I'm sure they have secure Zoom. We can do it.
Of course.
Like we're doing it. I'm not leaving. The only time
you saw my email I got yesterday, right, or today.
Oh, about what, NSA? The NSA?
Yeah.
Are you a student?
Yeah. I was like, I taught a class, and they sent me an email saying I'm a student. I was like, wait a second.
Listen, all I know is when the government does anything, when the government does it, they fuck up so badly.
I started laughing.
They can't wipe their own asses without help. All right? That's the impression I get. It has to be done privately. But I hope to be proved wrong on that.
Oh,
so there we are. So about the Nazi Bell, no, I don't think they had it. Maybe there was toward the end of the war. Maybe they got it, and and they got to the Nazi bases on the moon or Antarctica, But something weird happened in Antarctica. There was also that admiral. What's his name? The admiral went to the South Pole and the North Pole.
Yep.
There was that thing with the naval ships. All these stories. I don't know if they're true, but there could be something in Antarctica.
Well, that brings up some other things too. Somebody even brought up about Blue Beam. That whole New World Order / everything. But yeah, the thing about Antarctica, it's always been a hotbed for several reasons. Even Flat Earth Society, or just flat earthers in general, for some reason Antarctica is this magic place.
Well, yeah, they're. Oh, yeah, that's the other thing. That's the other thing John Warner said. You reminded me. Said that Carl Jung may have, and even his grandfather may have been involved with the Thule Vril Society, which are these occult. His mother, John Warner's mother was like a hippie into all this stuff. She knew Gurdjieff. Oh, that was his grandmother. I'm sorry, his grandmother knew Gurdjieff. And and I know a lot of these people. I met a lot of these people from the Gurdjieffians and the Andy Besant, and the Rosicrucians, all those people. They were in touch with me back in the 70s, So I know about that. I was part of that scene.
Yeah. Well, you were at the transition time when there was just a lot of things going on. So yeah,
I was contacted by all kinds of secret societies when I was in my 20s and my 30s. I mean, including these witches, these white witches in England. There's a whole thing. Tarot cards. It was also fun because I had a lot of, they had some pretty women, and I was a young guy,
Yeah. Let's see. Astro Deuce is bringing up Thule is disinfo. Possibly it was impossible to prove allegedly. If he's speaking of Thule, Greenland, I have a lot of information on some things that happened there. Let's see here.
I mean, the Thule Society had to do with those. With the creation, the alleged creation of the Nazis. There's this book, Spear of Destiny by Ravenscroft, an English guy.
Yeah.
Morning of the Magicians. All those books. I read all those things back then. I was involved with these people.
Oh yeah. Before they were burning a lot of stuff back in there. That was an interesting time as well. Let's see here. What are the odds? I think we're going to have some questions that'll delve into some other areas a little bit. But what are the odds extraterrestrial aliens are bipedal?
I don't know. I'm not the guy. The only contact I had was with an alleged computer, a conscious computer, that was the flying saucer itself talking to me. And by the way, Ingo Swann had a similar contact. Swann, when he was with the same thing, but about a flying saucer 100 years in the future. Ingo Swann. I have that story from Brendan O'Regan, who was working with Ingo, and also this guy Saul Paul Sarag, his girlfriend Barbara Hanukkah was involved, and this is all. Yeah, so I'm not the only guy to have these crazy.
It seems to happen to the Jewish. Always get the best part. Sometimes it seems like. So we'll see. Yeah. Let's see here. Ask about depleted uranium over the Middle East the past 15 years.
Don't ask me that.
Yeah, let's go back to the. Let's get back to Tic Tac. If you got a question on Tic Tac Tech or anything that involves Tic Tac as far as how they work, how they operate, how they get from point A to point B, things of that nature. And what I'll do is, Jack, whenever this is over, I'll stay on and I'll answer all the other questions that get off into the meat of the matter here. Magic is asking, what are metamaterials made from? Like, what is the raw material used to make this?
You can use all kinds of graphene is a good one. In any case, for questions like that, you have something called Google. Type in metamaterial. And start with Wikipedia articles, which are pretty good on this kind of stuff. And you see there are a vast variety of metamaterials, different scales, some for microwaves, even sound waves, light waves. It depends on the scale. But a metamaterial is just like a bunch of little, resonate, little LCR circuits made of what are called quantum dots. There are different ways of making them. You can make them with pieces of metal. You can make them with different. They're just a way. You make an object of a certain shape, and out of a structure, out of metal, and then you make a lot of them, and you
Then you lattice it and all that.
lattice it together. Yeah.
Okay, so here's one just for you. What powers Tic Tac?
I just told you, electromagnetic field inside the metamaterial. The metamaterial is an amplifier. Okay, the metamaterial is a transducer between electromagnetic fields and gravity fields.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and it amplifies it amplifies the effect. The metamaterial, when it's resonantly pumped in the proper way, it will amplify the response of the electric charges inside the metamaterial to the applied electromagnetic field, and which in turn generate a gravitational field according to Einstein's field equations.
So effectively, each part of that lattice is going to be, or each particle is going to be like a massive capacitor, but on a nanoscale.
Yeah. It'll be like a capacitor and a coil, effective capacity and effective inductance, and even resistance to some degree, unless it's superconducting. It could be like a superconducting.
Right.
Junction. It could be a little Josephson junction, but we see when you pump it right, it'll operate as a superconductor at high temperatures. You don't want to use cryogenics. It's not a low. It has to operate at high temperatures. And that's a non-equilibrium effect. That's a whole other thing.
It's a whole other world. Let's see here. Ask him about. I may ask a question that may not have. I'm not proofing these first, so I'm just going to ask it live. Ask him about the material that transfers kinetic to electromagnetic radiation, aka.
Unfortunately, okay. Here's a good. This kid, whoever he is, smart kid, but has not been taught physics properly, so he can't even ask a question that's properly formulated.
Formatted. Yeah, I got you.
Formatted.
I think I see where he's going with it.
I understand what he wants. Kind of. So it has nothing to do with kinetic energy. It's just electromagnetic, and it's not even radiation. It's fields, electromagnetic and gravitational fields. There are two kinds. They're what are called radiation far fields. Mm-hmm. I'll call it Tesla. Nikola Tesla. Remember Tesla?
Never heard of it.
Yeah, near fields. They're confined, localized. I'm only talking about near field. I'm not talking about radiation. We could talk about it, but right now I want to focus on the near fields. The Earth's gravitational field is not a radiation field, not gravitational waves. It's what's called the gravitational near field.
Yeah.
In terms of those of you who may know mathematics, the far field is what's called the hyperbolic partial differential equations, and the near field are the elliptical partial differential equations. So, and they're two separate things. They interact with each other, and we're only talking about near fields. Well, what Tesla was mainly when Tesla with his big, with the sparks and the generators, those are all near fields.
So if you thought about it on a scale that might make sense visually or in the mind, I may say this improperly, so bear with me. But just like the radiation coming from the sun would be a far field, and the Earth's magnetic field itself, which is essentially close, it is a near field. So that's you visually were trying to figure out which is which, that would probably better explain.
And everything, even your Bluetooth is basically, I think, near field.
Near field.
Bluetooth is near field. Okay.
And an FM radio station.
All the electrical engineers, PG&E, Con Edison, that's all those big generators and all that stuff. That's all near field stuff. Mm-hmm. Transmission lines, basically near field. Radiation, you don't want radiation because radiation is like oil leaking from the engine. Okay. Now you are interested if you want to do directed energy weapons, beam, laser beam. If the Tic Tac wants to shoot out a strong gravitational laser beam that'll spaghettify and destroy an F-18 or even a battleship or even an aircraft carrier, it could do that. Mm-hmm. See, that's the other thing.
And it doesn't take much to do it. And here we are spending billions and billions and billions of dollars, and we could probably knock this out.
The point is, let me make a statement. Sure. I'm getting pretty tired. We're going to have to stop soon. But the thing is this, I actually, Ronald Reagan gave a speech, a State of the Union speech in the 80s, in which he talked about rendering nuclear weapons impotent and obsolete. Mm-hmm. Well, I actually wrote those lines for Reagan's speech.
Okay.
With the Institute of Contemporary Studies, Laurie Chickering, and all that stuff. Actually, I actually wrote those lines, and I'm going to repeat them again. Tic Tac metric engineering physics technology renders, in principle, all conventional military weapons impotent and obsolete. Is it a military threat? Yes, it is a military threat. Yes, it is.
Absolutely.
Okay, it is. Why hasn't it been used against us yet? Well, good question. I don't know.
It's a good question.
Yeah. Now, I think I know. I think I know. I think what's happening is, since there's a lot of forces out there, a lot of both aliens and time travelers, our future selves, who are actually, our future selves have to protect us against them, against hostile aliens, because otherwise they wouldn't exist. It's like Terminator. It's a self-consistent loop in time.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Star Trek 4, where they go back to San Francisco, to save the whales and all that stuff.
Right, of course.
So
transparent aluminum.
Yeah. So the thing is this. The reason maybe we haven't been attacked is because we have sentinels, namely ourselves from the future, our future descendants, that have to protect the timeline. Otherwise, they'll be destroyed. So it's in their self. They have to do it. Okay. But there may be a war brewing. That whole stability thing, maybe it'll break down. And then we're talking about maybe parallel universes,
right. Multiverses, all that.
The ultra-terrestrial hyperdimensional has to do with maybe there are parallel worlds, and there's a leakage between the worlds. Have you seen Man in the High Castle on Netflix?
Yep, and then parallel consciousness.
Philip Dick, the Dick novel. In fact, Dick used to come to Cafe Trieste. I knew, we were connected too. We knew people in common. Robert Anton Wilson, Walter Breen. Well, to some extent, Dick's novels were influenced by my work as well. Back and forth. We were all part of that same kind of hippie, psychedelic group and Berkeley group. It's just been now in the '60s and the early '70s.
Yeah, hippie save physics, I think. Something like that.
Yeah. Read David Kaiser's book on hippie save physics. Yeah. So the point is that parallel universe. That all that stuff might be real. I'm not saying it is for sure, but it's quite possible.
It definitely is a leap for a lot of people to go from physical, tangible things like this and to just open the mind up. I mean, it's almost like a drug-induced experience for someone to be able to understand it. So,
I remember the Ray Kurzweil was the singularity. Approaching the singularity.
Right. One last question here, and we'll let you go. Astro wants to find out about Sirius.
Now he's not serious, is he? He's not serious. Serious. Yeah, there's this stuff. Actually, I do know something. I know what he's referring to.
Yeah.
And this guy who used to work with Saul Paul Sirag, if we hippie say physics, and Arthur Young, who Arthur Young, by the way, is connected with the Mellons. Arthur Young was one of our guys who supported us back in the '70s. There was Arthur Young worked with this. Was he an archaeologist? Somebody who wrote the book about that these aliens from Sirius have been
ancient alien archaeologists or alien archaeology or something.
Yeah, I forget. It was a kind of Van Daniken type guy, but it wasn't him. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, it's not important. It's not really important.
It's interesting.
What's important is to get these things working, is to make our own, and to understand what's important. Okay, let's just get that. What is important? What's important is for the powers that be, the governments, both the U.S., Russia, UK, Israel, to talk to me and Keith Wands and a few other guys I work with, Nick Cook, some other people. There's a few of us. We think we understand basically what the phenomenon is. Talk to us, get it all together, and see what to do next. And if they don't do that, then I think the Russians are actually doing it. The Russians at this point, I think the Russians are more likely to come out with a practical Tic Tac technology, unless the American Navy starts talking to me directly, and not talking through intermediaries who don't know what they're talking about, who don't accurately represent what I'm talking about, what I'm trying to tell them.
Mm-hmm.
So
interesting.
Here we are.
Well, let me see if there's any. Get back to the comment section here. And Council on Foreign Relations, perhaps. Yeah. So, yeah, we're starting communication here. Jack, I greatly appreciate you coming on the show. We talk daily, obviously. So,
let's just summarize.
Sure.
Let's suppose everything you say about those videos is correct.
Right.
And I'm assuming it is because that's your expertise, not mine. Okay.
Appreciate that.
Nevertheless, there's a lot of other evidence we haven't seen,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what's conclusive. And the physics stands.
Yeah. Everything is still there. There's your field is not affected, and you've got a lot of work to do down the road. So you got to hang around and let's get this stuff.
Well, I don't know. Let's see. Hopefully. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let's check out that video with Rudy Giuliani.
I will. That was in the link earlier. You had that earlier on the email
and also
list.
John Alexander. You haven't seen either.
That surprised me as soon as I saw that your words that you might actually be in agreement with him on something.
Yeah, he likes to play games, Alexander. He waffles sort of.
Yeah.
Sometimes sounds like he doesn't think it's real, then he says it is real.
Well, we'll see how that works.
Yeah. I'm curious to see what you make of what he said.
I will. I'll take a look at it as soon as this is over. I'll be happy to take a look at it.
All right. So and let me know what you think about the John Warner dark journalist thing and the Rudy Giuliani Nick Pope thing. Those are all important. All right.
Bye, all right, buddy. Thanks, Jack. Take care now.
Okay, Mike.
All right, buddy. Okay, so if we can go into John. That's John Alexander. It's a topic that comes up quite a bit in the. There's a lot of people on this list that is kind of like a hidden background list where a lot of people talk. You've got obviously Jack, you got myself, and a whole bunch of others. You have Deepak Chopra, you have Frank Milburn, just a whole bunch of people that all have incredibly diverse backgrounds, and it gets entertaining at times and it gets a little tricky at times as far as arguments that go back and forth. But the end result is a lot of information is put out there. It's just like anything. You can take what works for you and leave what doesn't, and you can argue. That's actually where my argument with Eric Davis occurred, was on that list. That you got to take it like a grain of salt there sometimes. But I'm going to try to answer direct questions. If anyone has any for me, if someone wants to come on the actual show, let me know. I'll try to make that work. And Magic, we've actually, I don't know how you would call this relationship with Magic here, but Magic goes by Assfuck McGriddle on Twitter. Pardon my language, but that is his thing there. So we've had some arguments on there, and then just like the thing with the email list, we kind of find some common ground periodically, and that's just how it is with anybody. I agree. Greer is got some issues. To the Stars Academy, my favorite subject of all time. That is an organization that when it first came out, I felt like there was quite a bit of interesting things going on, and it just seemed like it was a positive thing. Now, not so much. I don't see it as going a good direction. But no one can argue that if it wasn't for To the Stars Academy, we would not be having this discussion right now. So for that alone, you have to look at it from that standpoint, that To the Stars Academy, Tom DeLonge, former Blink-182, you look at some of the people that are in this area, and you look at their backgrounds and how varied it is, and then you wonder, how all this got pieced together. So everyone's talking about it. There's a lot of different feelings about what's actually going on, and I have my own opinions and I have my own facts. One thing
TTSA needs to be investigated by the SEC for securities fraud. I'm kind of in agreement. That was actually one of the first things I brought up, was that they were utilizing information. First off, you're using videos that were acquired surreptitiously, which was admitted by Christopher Mellon. He actually stated, I got these surreptitiously from the Department of Defense. And as such, you have to wonder if someone's using information to get people to fund them or to invest in their company, and that information is not supposed to be put out to the public. It says right on that form, 1910 form, this is not for public consumption, but they do it anyway. And yet they don't get in trouble for it. So you have to wonder, Lou Elizondo, Chris Mellon, get 3 videos from the Department of Defense, comes out, show it to the world. Department of Defense says, that Lou didn't work there. Then they said they did. Then they said that the videos weren't authorized. Then they put the videos out themselves. There's a lot going on behind the scenes that we're not privy to. I mean, I have my own ideas and some information about what I think's happening, but who knows? There's a lot of let's see here. I'm gonna put some of these up so you guys can see them. If you want to look into what I was asking, please do reflect on the concept that you meant to piss off. Okay, you mean depleted uranium? Okay, I got you. I'm following. I'm with you on that. Tom DeLonge seemed like he was on something when he was on the Rogan podcast. No sniffling, nonstop. Well, yeah, that who knows? Keep in mind too, some people in history, some of your best minds and some of the most wonderful things ever were done while people were high as a kite. So, I wouldn't want that person building rockets and sending me to Mars, because who knows what would happen. So let's hope Elon doesn't do any more, weed when he's trying to calculate Starship getting to Mars. There is a piece of information I want to put out real quick. It was stated to me early on in this investigation with the UFO UAP thing, that the government or the military would never test technology or utilize spoofing technology against itself. Either A, I heard that wrong or heard the answer wrong, or B, it's somehow misunderstood as to what exactly it is, or the way the technology is utilized. Is it something that was so standard that when someone said that no, they would never do that, or maybe they were talking about something else entirely. But in the end, the question was brought up about spoofing technology used against American military forces while they're training. Keep in mind, both the Nimitz and the Roosevelts were in training. They were one was in 8X and one was whatever they were doing their warm-ups, so to speak, for their crews. And in the case of Nimitz and in the case of Roosevelt, both times spoofing technology was used in both locations in both dates, in 2004 and in 2015. That is absolute, pretty much verified by my sources. My sources being the people that make the spoofing technology, the DRFMs. So they were using it. And what I was told they generally use it for is your red team situation, where you have, red team, blue team, and they go after each other and they do, what have you. But the red team would have information spoofed so that they look like other aircraft, that they're jamming things, that they'd look like multiple aircraft coming in. So that was part of the reasoning for having it. But obviously the technology was there on site and it was being utilized. Whereas I was told before that the spoofing technology is only used against enemy forces. We would never use it against ourselves, and blah, blah, blah. That was wrong. I'm not saying the person lied to me, but the instances where that was brought into conversation may have the person may have been thinking of some other instance, not necessarily what I was talking about. If that's confusing to you, the only takeaway from that is this: spoofing technology, the technology that I claim some of these sightings or the answers as to how the instrumentation and radars and things like that were picking up signals that may or may not have been there. So you have Fravor, just to give you a case in point, sees this object come up from the ocean after watching a disturbance in the water. My contention is that Fravor saw a submarine launch a balloon, and that balloon visually would look like a Tic Tac. If there's a tether in the water holding this balloon while it's being inflated, that balloon would be jerking back and forth and would look like a ping pong ball going back and forth exactly as he described. So maybe that is what happened. Maybe not. Who knows? I wasn't there. But as things progress, the technology behind the DRFM has progressed. Now, one thing I will bring up that was mentioned to me was that the likelihood of DRFM being utilized on a balloon would be somewhat questionable because of the power requirements, that it would be a lot of weight for a balloon to carry. However, the counter to that is balloons carry a lot of weight. So, we have to go back and forth as far as how much weight and if it's been miniaturized by another company, what have you. So anyway, there's a lot of variables there, but the takeaway again is DRFM technology has been used. And there's growing acceptance. Keep in mind, a long time ago, I said that this is all U.S. technology, and the other thing that I was saying basically from the beginning is that spoofing technology was being utilized, and because it would explain so many things. I mean, Kevin Day saw objects moving from 80,000, 50,000, 25, whatever, to whatever other altitude, which would require an object to move ridiculously fast, and no sonic booms were heard. Either A, they're Tic Tacs like Jack has described, and that these objects can do this by warping space around them, or maybe, in my opinion, a more realistic answer is that they're just spoofing technology, because you can make these objects appear to go whatever speed you want it to appear. A radar beam is sent out. It hits the DRFM. The DRFM records this and then manipulates the signal and sends that signal right back to the source and adds a form of Doppler shift to make it appear as whatever speed you want it to look like. And it has to be done incredibly fast. And back in 2004, the technology just wasn't probably as good as it is now. But that technology, part of it is made by, or the current technology is made by Mercury Systems. Anyone can look that up. So let me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a screen and show you what I'm talking about here, because it's something it's extremely important. I'm going to do the search over here and then I'll pull it over. Let's see here. We're going to do, all I'm searching for in Google is U.S. Navy spoofing technology. And I bet Mercury Systems will come right up. And it's the Navy secretive, military airspace, USNI. Yeah, it's got a couple of them. And Navy continues buying radar technology. So I'm going to share this other screen. We're going to pull it up here. Hang on just a second. Let me stop that screen. Share this screen. Don't need sound. And there we have it. So if you look here, I'll try to catch up with these questions here in a minute. But the Navy, as you can see here, the Navy continues buying radar spoofing electronic warfare equipment from Mercury Systems. This is exactly, once I read to you how this works, you're probably going to say, that's it. So the U.S. Navy airborne electronic warfare experts are continuing their support of radar spoofing electronic warfare technology from Mercury Systems that can fool enemy radar systems with false and deceptively moving targets. This is what it looks like right here. This is the system. This is, it's a fairly heavy device here that you're looking at. This is DRFM, and I'll explain what that is here in a second. And I'm going to read this because I'm not sure. Some of you may be looking at this on your phone, and you may not be able to see it. So, U.S. Navy airborne electronic, this is going to be a repeat, warfare experts are continuing their support for radar spoofing electronic warfare technology for Mercury systems that can fool enemy radar systems with false and deceptively moving targets. Officials of the Navy Air Warfare Center Aircraft Division in Lakehurst, New Jersey, announced an $8.6 million contract Monday to Mercury Systems, or Mercury Defense Systems, which is a subsidiary of Mercury Systems, blah, blah, blah. So let's get to the good stuff. The Navy ordered 28 DRFM units from Mercury in April of 2016, a contract for $15.4 million, and ordered 14 Mercury DRFM units in June of 2015, a contract for $7.6 million. And here's the kicker. Previous to that, Mercury had won a $2.6 million DRFM order in October of 2014. And a $1.5 million Navy order for this technology in June of 2014. So this is around the time frame that the Roosevelt objects occurred. Keep in mind too that several of the objects that we're seeing also are something that works with the system. There's some things I can say, and even though I'm no longer under I'm going to honor my word to a couple of people, so I'm not going to go into a couple of details, and I apologize for that. But there are objects that work in conjunction with the DRFM that have been described by pilots, and what I saw is exactly that. And this person that told me about the adjoining object, or the object that works in conjunction with this, was not aware of the a certain pilot's description of it. So anyway, DRFM technology has several unique features for covert EW applications. First, EW is electronic warfare, by the way. First, it provides coherent time delay of RF signals in applications like radar and electronic warfare. It also produces coherent deception jamming to an enemy radar system by replaying a captured radar pulse with a small delay, which makes the target appear to move. So essentially it takes a signal, the signal comes to it, it manipulates that signal, sends it back, but it adds or subtracts or whatever it does to the signal. So when the signal goes back, it's manipulated to make the receiving radar station think that something different is happening than what is actually happening. One is that the object could be huge. It could be, 500 feet across, or it could show multiple objects, like hundreds of them. And I'll come back to these questions in a minute, but I'm going to finish this real quick. DRFM can modulate captured pulse data in amplitude, frequency, and phase to provide other effects. A Doppler shift correlates range and range rate trackers in the radar. DRFM can replay captured radar pulses many times to fool the radar into perceiving many targets. So keep in mind that the radar screens that these people, the Navy personnel, are looking at, they're looking at objects on a radar screen. So the visual objects don't match anything that's showing up on the radar screens. And the reason why I say that is this. Even the Tic Tac. Chad Underwood never saw the Tic Tac with his own eyes. Only Fravor did. Well, Fravor and the other three that were on that flight detail. So the signals that we're talking about here, and there's a lot that goes along with this, so I'm trying to make this as simplified as possible. When Kevin Day and the other radar operators were looking at their screens, and of course I could be wrong, but my understanding after 3 years of looking at this is that everything that they saw on those screens could have been manipulated in such a way that the objects appeared real. So real, in fact, that people would argue tremendously about such subject with a lot of conviction. But at the same time, they have to understand that the red team DRFM signals that were being sent out as well, or that were being utilized to produce what would appear to be fake enemies, fake radar jamming and stuff like that, also had to appear pretty much real. Otherwise, the training would not be realistic. So that's what's happening there. So I'm going to come back and try to answer some of these questions, and you guys can read this too. And there's several manufacturers that make this stuff. Back at the time of the Tic Tac event, apparently one of the companies worked with a drone. They were looking at making drones that had a scissor wing that could be launched from a canister, and this same apparent canister that can be launched from submarines was made in such a way that it would fit this balloon, but the balloon had to be inflated. So apparently the canister was launched, a tether remained attached to it somehow, and while the balloon inflated and held while the equipment was turned on, and I guess after the equipment is turned on, it's tested to see if everything's working properly, and then the balloon's released, and that's when Fravor started his point coming down, and that's an area of contention that everyone's going to have with me as my explanation of what was visually being seen. You can't spoof the eyes. I get that. I'm not an idiot, so trust me, I get that. But at the same time, you have to understand that when they're spoofing something, they also come up with ways to fool the eyes. I'm not saying that the balloon is something that's there to fool the eyes and make you think that a balloon is a B-52 or whatever. That's not the point. The point is that most of the time when you're flying, you're not looking at the object. You're looking at your screen. You're looking at your SA, which is your situational awareness screen, or you're looking at the FLIR. You're looking at something that's giving you the signal electronically, just like what we're seeing when we see the Tic Tac. So let me go back up here. I'm going to try to come through and read some of your questions here. Let's see here. Let's go back. All right. So DRFM could be used on low orbiting satellites. I would say it's possible, but not likely, because the problem with low orbiting satellites is that they move at 17,500 miles an hour. They're only going to be in the area for a very short period of time. The most logical platform to place DRFM on is something that could, I don't know, hang around for a long time. Probably doesn't show up very well on radar. In fact, the balloons, in order to show up on radar, they have to add reflectors to them. That way they don't become a burdensome problem with air traffic. Now keep in mind too that weather balloons, some of these things that have been cited are actually other types of balloons. Case in point, the mystery wire images that everyone was talking about just a few weeks ago, the Batman balloon, and I'm the one that coined the shark balloon, which is a metallic blimp, and then the other one, which I believe is a high altitude balloon, and I can show you that, but that's not what we're here to talk about. So digital radio frequency memory, what you're looking at is digital radio frequency memory. That's what that is. So basically it's a memory unit that memorizes something and then sends it back out. It mimics the objects that it's talking about. So you'll definitely study up on this. Look at Mercury systems. If you look at the time frame matches exactly with what was happening off the coast of Jacksonville in January. I think it was January 25th or whatever, 2015, which is when those two videos were done. The two videos were by the same pilot. That would be Gimbal and Go Fast. Go Fast has obviously been debunked. This is, of the three videos that came from TTSA, Go Fast is toast. It's just simply not anything TTSA has said it is. Let's go down here. Show up in a mirror lens. Yeah, but that okay. Yeah, keep in mind we're talking about whenever we talk about DRFM, we're talking about the signals as they show up on a radar screen or on a pilot's at FLIR or those systems. If it's in visual mode, then obviously it's looking at a tangible object. Now, there's a lot of questions that, and I'll bring this up on another show because there's a lot of questions I have. Obviously, why, if these objects were there for a few days, why didn't they scramble some other aircraft to come out there? Remember, they asked in the case of the Tic Tac or FLIR 1 video, they asked the pilots, what is your loadout? Effectively asking them, what weapons do you have? And when they said they had none, they sent them on anyway. So in my mind, they're saying, well, what weapons do you have? None. Okay, are you sure? Yes, we're sure. Okay, good, because we don't want you shooting down our own technology. Okay. Let's see. Yes, it's very easy to spoof GPS is allegedly how Iran hacked the RQ-170 unless Obama gave it to them as GPS jamming spoofing from ground directional antenna. Who knows on that one? RQ-170 is a pretty cool drone though. It makes sense if it's only showing up on radar. Correct. It does make, and that's the key thing is it has to show up on radar because that's the first thing that your enemy is going to be looking at. The enemy is scanning the skies, trying to see if anything's coming, just like we're doing. They have passive radar systems and active radar systems that do this. Barium shows up on my PAL X-rays. Okay, good to know. I used to spoof my computer's MAC address in order to steal my neighbor's internet back in the day. Correct. What Magic is talking about is if you look at your phone or look at your computer, whenever you connect to the internet, people are familiar with IP addresses. IP address means that you have been assigned, say, a telephone number and you can call people. Okay. That's like your computer connecting to the internet, and your phone number is your IP address. But your computer, the actual computer, has like its serial number, so to speak, but it has what's called a MAC address. That MAC address is specific to that device. So your computer, when it connects to the internet, it transmits its MAC address, which essentially is your specific computer over the internet. So it has your IP address, has your MAC address, so they can come in and they can tell which computer actually did whatever it is was being done. So what you would get is a MAC rotator or a router that supports MAC rotation. And some of this is going to be way over some people's heads, but I think the people that are listening to the answer to this know what I'm talking about, or know that I know what I'm talking about. But you generally you would rotate your MAC address, you would rotate your IPs, or you would use a VPN client and you would surf that way. So that's key in keeping yourself unknown on the internet. So chemtrails would make luminous projections possible in theory. Chemtrails or contrails would absolutely, much as if I did this. That's what your chemtrail / contrails are made out of. So basically, you have some sort of vapor in the air. You have a place to project an image. So yes. X-ray is way too energy intensive. You mentioned quantum dots. That would be, I think we're back to when Jack was here. Feels like a ploy to get special access stuff open and tied to Q. I keep hearing about med beds, like from Star Trek and movie Asylum. Let's see, I'm sorry. Yes. As far as the technology for those types of beds, that's something that's here almost pretty much now. TTSA is an investment fraud scheme, in my opinion. I somewhat tend to agree. In fact, I agree so much that if TTSA or Lou Elizondo or Christopher Mellon or especially Dr. Eric Davis and now Hal Putoff, because I've been talking with Hal Putoff via email, and recently that went dark. So I haven't had much communication with him recently. And what we were communicating about was specific things that they should acknowledge, or that, and keep in mind, Hal is no longer with TTSA. He's on, I think he told me, the board of whatever one of their advisory boards. So he's technically not there anymore, but he could obviously advise the people that are left at TTSA. I don't see TTSA, as far as what we're looking at for the UFO community, lasting much longer. That whole area, once Lou was gone, Chris was gone, that whole section is probably toast. Okay. Just a good thing, fun, blah, 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 blah. Okay. I think TTSA is fraudulent. Why do they need investor money from non-accredited investors? Who knows? It's like with any company, you sell your stock, you try to increase the net worth of your company, which effectively creates a non-real value. And to do so, you have to show that your company is doing something great or good. A lot of companies, who would have invested in Apple if Apple, was making computers like Radio Shack? So you saw where the Radio Shack computers went, the TRS, trash 80s is what we used to call them. They went south when Apple kept going. So the Apple IIe was probably one of the first most successful computers ever. They hire real security. The Griffin piece of blah blah. I think they made a lot of false promises. Yeah, they did. I don't know about you guys. I don't like being lied to. I know that sounds funny coming from me with what I did with the social experiment. But to be, I can address that issue too. But the main thing is that if someone is taking a video, and this is where I have an issue with everything that's happening, and I'll do a whole nother show on this, but this is a key takeaway for anyone that wants to know why I'm here or why I'm still here and not doing other things. It's because of this. I can quickly look at visual evidence and determine bullshit or real. Okay. There's a lot of people that can do that. And then going into and actually taking the time to debunk it, I don't have a lot of time. And that's where I think people like Mick West are truly needed, because apparently he has some time to sit down and do that. Now, back in the Vegas, I apparently had time to do it then, but not now. But anyway, long story short is no video, nothing from Jeremy Corbell, nothing from George Knapp, and nothing from TTSA. Not one of those videos show anything doing anything extraordinary. And a lot of people can argue about that, but the technical aspect of it is, if you analyze those videos as much as I have, or say Mick West especially, they just simply don't do it. And I don't have to turn around probably if somebody was bringing up the subject, especially on Twitter. If I say something like that, then everyone gets mad at me because I'm discounting all of the testimony, the eyewitness testimony. The reason why I immediately, I don't dismiss the eyewitness testimony. That's not it. It's two separate things to me. And people they think I should put that together. I don't. If someone says, Mike, what is this? I'm going to say it's a Samsung Galaxy S20, blah, 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 whatever the phone it is. Okay. But Jim over here says it's a da-da-da-da-da. Okay. Do I take what he says into consideration? Or do I stick with my original assessment that I'm looking at the object, I can tell what it is, it has a model number, it has all these different things, and if I'm going to have to sit in court and be on a witness stand and say, this is a blah, 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 I can't sit there and go, but Jim thinks it's something else. Why would I do that? Okay. It's irrelevant. Any testimony, if I'm analyzing this, I don't add in anything else. I'm being paid to, not obviously in this case, but if I'm doing eyewitness test or doing a expert witness thing, someone says, Turber, look at this, tell us what it is. Okay. It's a da-da-da-da-da. And I'm done. That's my analyzation, and that's it. They're not going to come back to me and say, oh, well, thank you for analyzing this and telling us what it is. But by the way, this person says this other thing happened, and that this object went here and did this, and that's irrelevant. It's completely irrelevant to what I am being asked to do. So the videos have nothing to do with the testimony of someone unless they're talking specifically about the video. But the problem is that people are saying, but you're discounting Kevin Day, or you're discounting Gary Voorhees, or you're discounting PJ, you're discounting, all these other things. No, I'm not. I'm not discounting that at all. I'm simply stating that this video is what I believe to be this. Because people ask me, what do you believe it is? What is it? And if you can't come up with what it is, what do you think it is? And I don't think any of them are aliens at all. Zero. None of them. In fact, I'm so surprised at some of the things that some people believe, but we're all human. We all believe in a bunch of different stuff. So that's fine. All right. So let's go back here. I think okay, I caught up. Within the hierarchy, think they made a lot of false promises. Agreed. I really appreciate you, Mike. I hope you don't have any hard feelings because I was skeptical of you regarding LVS. That's fine. I don't have any issues. I understand that. And the other thing I understand is that whenever I'm working a case, like the Tiger King case, which I don't really put a lot out, the reason for that is because I'm in the middle of it. And just so you know, I may be the reason why Tiger King didn't come out in March, or part of the reason at least, because some of the information that was found, one of the key suspects is in the federal witness protection program. They've been looking for this guy for months and months and months, and I found him because I kind of knew a different place to look, and I had help from another person who shall remain nameless at this moment. But who knows? The thing is that whenever I'm doing this, I can't go into detail. I try to give as much as I can, but sometimes that evasiveness is misunderstood, and I am a terrible person at explaining some of these things, and it just comes across wrong, and I piss people off, I make people upset, people mad at me. But when people meet me face to face and they see, that I'm a real person, I'm not out here trying to I don't get shill checks, I'm not a government plant, I'm not a disinfo agent, all of these things that people claim. I'm not any of that. And whether or not people believe me, I don't really care. And that rubs people wrong too. They think I should just endlessly defend myself. And I don't have time for that shit. I really don't give a rat's ass what people believe when it comes to that. Let's see here. Who is really behind TTSA, and why did Lou now befriend Corbell and Knapp all of a sudden? The videos are garbage, agreed. Here's one thing. I think I'm going to be the bastard of the UFO community because I don't really feel I belong. I'm not a member of it. I don't have all the history and tenure, and I'm not here to look at videos from 1947 and all this other stuff. I'm here to look at information. I think it just went over my cord here, so I'm like slowly going lower. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here now because of a conversation that I had with a friend of mine back in 2005. That conversation was held on the phone. I listened to some communications, and fast forward to today. Now I found out, or recently, or back when actually Dave Beatty came out with his documentary. That's when I put two and two together, and I knew what those communications were. So that's a whole nother story, whole nother thing. That's my connection to this. And now that I'm kind of vetted into it, or not vetted into it, but I'm now embedded in it, I'm going to see it to the end. So I'm not going, after I'm done with this investigation, I'll move on to something else or whatever. I'm not going to, unless somebody convinces me a good reason to hang around, I don't feel I belong. Okay. So, and I get it. I don't necessarily want to belong, but what I want to do is make certain that the information I put out there, granted I'll never be able to live that one down as far as a social experiment. So I get it. But keep in mind, during that social experiment, I put out a lot of specific information to see how it would be responded to. Some of the information I put out was actually classified information. I wanted to see how certain entities would respond to that. Some of the other information that I put out was complete and utter bullshit. Me writing Tic Tac, Trump sending a Tic Tac to North Korea. All of that was just fantasy, just made up stuff, just to do whatever it was to see who else responded to that. And it was an experiment. I wanted to see exactly what that UFO community was all about, because it seems to me, and I could be wrong, but it seems to me that people in that community seem to accept, as long as the overall narrative of the person that they meet is similar to theirs, they tend to accept whatever that person says. Oh yeah, sure, yeah, come on in. Oh yeah, aliens landed in Central Park. Yeah, sure, no problem. They're not pressing each other for proof. They're not pressing each other, especially nowhere near as much as they press me or Mick or anyone else like that for proof of this stuff. They just, okay, no problem. And this is going to come out wrong too, but it's also similar to how people are in religion, how they just, everyone kind of accepts some things and some things they don't. And there's a lot of things where there's a battle, but it's been an experience. I'll put it that way. But that aside, social experiment is over. And the stuff that I'm doing right now, like bringing you this with the Mercury systems and the spoofing stuff or whatever, this information came out June 27th of 2017. Okay. So I've known about this for a very long time. But this is the information that now other people are starting to see. You see up here, I've got San Clemente Island that Google Earth is flying around. I made that 2 years ago because I started looking at San Clemente Island and going, wow, this has to be a source for something, because Kevin Day said these objects appeared to be coming from San Clemente. They're flying along at 120 knots, basically the wind speed at the altitude that they were at. So I had to look at, okay, what was coming down from there? How could they mimic this? Was balloons put up? And these balloons, the spoofing balloons, were putting out that data that Kevin Day was seeing? Very possible. So anyway, there's a lot more coming about that. Let's see here. Let me scroll down here. Hey, Scott. How you doing, buddy? Too many bullshitters in the UFO community. I agree. I was one of them for a moment. It really feels like these UAP videos are being used as Cold War tactics. One of the things I can say that I truly believe, because you have to ask yourself first, why in the world would the people that are with the UAP task force who are about to come out with a report, why are they leaking stuff? And more importantly, why in the hell are they giving it to Corbell or Knapp? Wouldn't it make sense you would give it to some scientific organization? Think about this. Why hasn't any legitimate scientific organization come out and said, wow, this stuff is legit. This stuff is not only real, it has to be extraterrestrial in origin. The reason why they haven't is because they're not. None of these videos show anything that any respectable, credible scientist would say, wow, this thing is doing 400 Gs, or all the stuff that Lou keeps talking about. It's bogus. Here's proof of how bogus it is. Let's just, again, everyone, myself, Mick, a few others, we like to pick on Go Fast, because Go Fast can be debunked by the information that's inside the video itself. They told us that this object is moving at the speed called hauling ass. That's apparently equates to 2/3 the speed of sound. And if that object is moving at 2/3 the speed of sound, great. That doesn't impress me, or shouldn't impress really anybody. But not only is it not moving at 2/3 the speed of sound, it's moving at like 40 miles an hour, which is even worse. And not only that, it's not low and near the surface of the ocean like they claimed. It is at 13,000 plus feet. So it's over 13,000 feet moving at 40 miles an hour. Whoop-de-diddly quote. Yeah, who cares? Okay. And it's moving at the same speed that the wind speed is at that location on that date. So with that in mind, there's only one object that comes to mind that looks like that would move with the wind, that has no signs of propulsion, just like Lou likes to say, has no obvious signs of propulsion and no ailerons, no wings, no whatever, can stay aloft for hours and hours and hours. It's a freaking balloon. But when confronted, what did Lou do? He argued with me. He basically said I'm an idiot, and that that they had guys way smarter than I am. I don't know how he knew what my IQ was, but apparently he does. Way smarter than I am. Look at this. And the Department of Defense. Well, where is that? If you've got smarter people than myself or Mick or anyone else that's out there that debunk this stuff, that's doing our own math, and I even did it with a piece of string and a ruler and a protractor, then I want to meet these guys, because if they came up with a different answer. Anyway, that is a problem. So I've confronted Christopher Mellon. I've confronted Eric Davis, because Eric Davis said that my math is wrong and all this other stuff. And most recently, Hal Putoff. Not one has come back with any type of answer that would make sense as to why they continue to push Go Fast as it is. They even made the TV show about it. So that's an issue for me. That means that, okay, you got 1 out of the 3 wrong. So 2/3 of what you have is still out there for public consumption or whatever, but you got 1 wrong. You should retract it. You should remove it from the site. You should say, be a man, Tom DeLonge, now it's rests on you. You come back and say, hey, we screwed up. That ain't right. And they don't do it. That tells me a lot. Well, yeah, the whistleblower protection that NAP can provide through media connections. Just so you know, I have the exact, actually, I don't know if it would be more, but I have the exact same media protection. I created the American Press Association a long time ago. 5x5 News is a news gathering organization. And people have brought information to me, as evidenced by some of the information I put out. And I won't name specific names. I can say that I've talked to Mercury Systems. I will say I've talked to Raytheon. I have talked to, obviously, Lockheed, Skunk Works, because you have video of me there, and various other organizations. So my question is if the technology that's being utilized to record these events is not being questioned, why aren't these people talking to these organizations? If you're going to tell me that this object is a whatever it is, and it's being recorded on an AppFlare, and the AppFlare is made by Raytheon, and you haven't talked to Raytheon, then I might have a problem with that. Just like somebody would have a problem if I come out and I said all kinds of stuff about the AppFlare system and the derotation device and how, the gimbal is glare, and I hadn't talked to Raytheon or actually gone to Raytheon. I've gone to 3 locations for Raytheon. One is actually right down the road. Literally, it's 2 miles from me. And just so you know, I'm in Lakeland, Florida right now. So look up where it's at. It's on whatever drain road it is out here by the airport. So that location, the McKinney location in Texas, which is where they make the darn things, and also the location at Plant 44, which if you look at Plant 44, it's going to be almost impossible to find, but it's their facility in Tucson, Arizona. It's right by the Tucson International Airport. So, and I've been to all these locations, and I've talked to people. I sat at a bar waiting until that opportune moment to bring up a subject and then see if somebody was open up to me. Not that I was going to sit there and just blast their name all over the place, because some of these people, I never even got their names. I just got the information. And that's important. So you got to do what you got to do to get the information. And I got it. Now I can't see because that light behind me is super bright. George is a much bigger name. I agree. Absolutely. See, here's the thing. In the media, someone coming out and saying that something's not something is not nearly as impressive or nearly as sellable or you get a lot of clicks, a lot of people watching your program, then someone saying something is something. So if I say something's not a UFO, I might get picked up by 1 out of 100 locations that might run that story. If I come out there and say, just like I did with, keep in mind, go back and look at everything I've done since the social experiment's over. When I did the social experiment, I was on many newspapers across the country. I was on the Sun. I was on the Mirror, Daily Mail, whatever all these different places were, and those stories were picked up because I said something sensational, something that people would go, "Holy crap! Let me buy this. This guy says this and this and this," and people read it. But now, when you start talking about that these things are not what people think they are, that doesn't sell newspapers. That doesn't get people looking at your station. So it's a much harder sell. So people like myself and Mick, we just don't get a lot of the attention that otherwise we get. But, we sit back here and we still keep doing the same thing, still keep saying that whatever. And then in the end, it'll be, and we told you so, but it's anticlimactic for us as well. I would very much like for these things to be that. There's my proof right there. Yes, I do believe. That's on every spacecraft that leaves the solar system. So yeah, I'm a believer. But do I believe they come here and visit with us almost daily? No. You're 2 hours late, Alan. What is your problem? Yeah, we're talking UFO. Phoenix lights, everything. So if you look at the, and I'm not a UFO expert. I'm I guess now an expert in the Nimitz and the Roosevelt thing as best as I want to call myself. And probably not when it comes down to it. But as far as the UFO, the history and all that, I mean, I go back to Barney and Betty Hill and things like that. But no, I'm not that. I'm not a member of the community, so to speak, other than whatever this is. And I'm a thorn in some people's sides. Even another journalist like Tim McMillan. Tim McMillan said a few weeks ago. Now, Tim McMillan is the guy that wrote the articles for Popular Mechanics and so forth. Tim McMillan said that my math was wrong, just like Dr. Eric Davis did. But Tim McMillan did it right on Twitter and said that he would, and I offered $10,000 to anyone that could prove that I was wrong. And Tim said he was going to take me up on that. And since Tim did, he ran off, said, "I'll be right back," blah, 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 kind of thing. Crickets. I have heard nothing from him since, which basically means he went and did the math, found out I was right, and no way in hell is he going to come back and say, "Shit, Turber's right." He won't do it. Neither will Eric Davis. It just ain't going to do it. So what does that tell you about Tim McMillan? If I would have done that, I would have gone and done the math, come back or done the math live right there and went, "Holy crap, you're right." And then I would have went to TTSA as a writer for Popular Mechanics who wrote about that same UFO for Popular Mechanics. And I'd come back, "Hey, you told us this object was flying low near the ocean surface and fast," which would be however fast you want to think it was going. But it's not. It's kind of like a retraction. Like if you publish something that's wrong, like I did. Remember when I came back and I apologized? I didn't apologize because I was caught. I apologized because it's the right thing to do. I came in, I made up a bunch of BS to see where it would go. And then after it did its job, I came back and said, "Hey, just want to apologize, let you guys know this stuff I told you back here, this is bullshit. This is still true. This is bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. This is true." That's the right thing to do. And I did that. Has TTSA done that? No. Does anyone going to run to TTSA and say, "Hey, you guys are full of shit with this go fast thing. Why don't you come clean?" No, they don't do it because they're still in that UFO community mindset that, hey, as long as it pushes the overall agenda forward, don't rock the boat. So that's my opinion. I could be wrong. Okay. Yeah, it seems like everyone runs out and grabs those cameras off the tables at the local, whatever the last wedding was, and they remember that. So I'm going to try to read these. Let's see here. Yeah, Corbell is famous for that. Right? It says, I think they need to stop making it seem like these are aliens. I agree. The term UFO is automatically equated to aliens. For some reason, it says, especially when somebody says something like Barack Obama essentially says UFOs are real. Well, of course they're freaking real. They are really unidentified flying objects, which is the same thing they were when they classified them as unidentified flying objects. They're still unidentified flying objects. So saying something's unidentified is real, yeah, it's really unidentified. I don't get it. And people eat that shit up, but whatever. Sorry. But why not have Jack validate the math for you? Yeah, we'll leave that one alone. There's a reason. Trust me, there's a reason. I think they need to stop making it seem like they are solid objects rather than radar blips for the most part. That goes two different ways, because some of the spoofing equipment is a physical object. It may be like this object's a balloon floating around, but it looks amazingly like this. And it might be sending out signals of 50, saying I'm 50 planes flying at you. So you have to have a physical, tangible object there to be able to transmit that information. So something has to be there. But yeah, I agree. Let's take another video that's not analyzed that much, but just was the other day, and I have the same flight simulator that the other person has, and I will be using the same flight simulator. So when someone comes out and says that I'm copying somebody, no, I've had this flight simulator for a long time, and I had plans a long time ago to do this. So I'm also going to use the flight simulator and show you how these things work. But keep in mind, one of the things that was said when gimbal was spotted was that there's a bunch of them or whatever, or there's a whole fleet of them. Look at the ASA. Or so when you look at your screen and you see X number of objects or whatever, go check them out. If this one is rotating and is only moving at about 220 miles an hour, about the same speed you are, kick that baby in the afterburner. Where's that part of the video? If something's in our airspace and it's that close and it's doing some weird shit, where's the rest of the video? I mean, come on, people, think logically here. All of these videos, every single video that we see is the middle. You don't see the beginning when they pull up and they, it's like flying along. Hey, go check this object out. Okay, turn on your board. That camera's on the moment it takes off from the flight deck and doesn't stop until it lands. So where's all that footage? Where's the footage from the moment before and the moments after, when they either A, determine what it was, B, send somebody else out there or whatever? So if I'm sending someone to go investigate something and 12 more show up, what happened? Seriously, where's that information? I hope that UAP task force report comes out and tells us what happened with all that rest of the information that should have been acquired. And the same thing, like if you go back to Nimitz, you go back to the Tic Tac, they send out planes. These objects are seen for days, and no one thinks to maybe, gee, we have a bunch of planes that are in training mode right now. They don't have weapons or anything like that. Let's go scramble something from somewhere else. That's a big question. Now, I did talk to Kevin about that, and he did come up with a fairly logical answer, which was that they didn't present a safety issue at the time. When they became a safety issue, Kevin asked the captain if he could send some planes out to investigate what these things are. That made sense. Thank you, Kevin, for doing that. I appreciate that. My biggest beef is that these are the nation's protectors of our borders, and yet they never took a military action to intercept these intruders. And of course, they were not concerned, or they would have checked. Now, keep in mind too, the people that were concerned were the people that went to go look at the object, the people that were in other planes or in lower positions. But when that information was brought up to the command structure, it wasn't that important. It wasn't that important, A, because it wasn't that important, or B, it wasn't that important because they knew what it was, or C, it wasn't that important because they didn't know what it was, and this has happened before, and they've realized that as before, there's really not much they can do. Who knows? But what it tells me is if I go up to the captain of a ship and I say, hey, these objects have been here for days, yeah, go check them out. And we go to check them out, and apparently, according to the testimony, that these objects did all kinds of crazy shit. Yeah, they went X number of G's, and they went X number of thousands of miles an hour, and they went somehow knew where our cap point was. What that tells me is something totally different than it tells someone else. Some people think that, oh, these are superior intelligence, blah, blah, blah. No, these aren't superior intelligence. This is our intelligence. This is the object going to the cap point, basically messing with us, saying, hey, we're just letting you know it's us, and we're here, and we're at your cap point just as a joke or whatever between friendlies. Who knows? I'm getting silly now. Yeah, the videos were online. The first time the video was put out was on Above Top Secret. The identity of the person who put the video on that blog is probably known. And I won't say who. But the video was claimed to be of taken off of a German website that was well known for doing CGI. So a lot back then, people were claiming, oh, this is from this website. We saw it on there, and it's probably just CGI. If that was their CGI, that was some terrible stuff. If you guys want to see something incredible, I can show you some CGI that would literally blow your mind. But I'll do that maybe at a different date. It involves Tom Cruise. I call bullshit on that. The moment they see a Russian plane, they meet it 1,000 miles from shore and send it back. I can attest to that. Tu-195s or Bears, that aircraft was probably one of the most intercepted airplanes ever. And we would constantly, as they're going up and down our coast, we'd send a flight over to them, and we'd shoot moons at them through the windows. We'd shoot birds at each other, whatever, and escort the plane out of there. Sometimes all the way back to Vladivostok or wherever the plane took off from. And yet these objects, they couldn't pursue. The bigger question is this. We pay a lot of taxpayer dollars, and I would be sitting there going, okay, why are we putting this much money in there? And you guys can't figure out what this stuff is, especially the ones that actually turn out to be a Batman balloon. And they're saying the object was stationary, this and that, whatever. And within minutes, we can figure out what it is out here. If you don't need the UAP task force, you just need a few classic debunkers out here. We'll figure it out for you. It won't cost you millions of dollars, nothing. But yes, the problem is it's hard to do this and not be sarcastic. It's hard to do this and not say, what in the hell are you guys thinking? And then people go, well, these are trained observers. I'm a trained observer. Okay. There's a bunch of trained observers. A lot of trained observers get it wrong. I've got 30 some odd years of video and manipulation on videos to determine if a video has been manipulated, or audio to, I'm the guy that found the last 3 shots to the Las Vegas shooting, the suicide shot, all of these different, 1,000 FBI agents couldn't find that. Does that mean I'm special? No, but it means kind of weird that a person that doesn't have access to the evidence is able to find a key piece of evidence. So you'd have to wonder the same thing. Is the FBI a bunch of quacks? Are they inept? Some guy that has no access to the evidence is able to find this, or find video footage that wasn't available and is on Tucker Carlson. I mean, These are questions that are asked all the time. So when someone says, well, they're trained observers and they blah, 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 that doesn't mean shit to me, because it shouldn't mean anything to you if I say it. Hopefully that makes sense. When someone says Fravor, trained observer, Alex Dietrich, trained observer, the Wizzos, trained observers, 4 people saw the same thing, Turber. No, they didn't. 4 people did not see the same thing. Go back and read the statements from each of the people. Fravor's story, I'm not trying to say Fravor's lied. I'm just saying Fravor's story has changed over time. Originally, I think it was said that the Tic Tac was found 5 nautical miles away from the disturbance in the water. Then it was over the water. Then the Tic Tac was bobbing back and forth. Alex says the Tic Tac was moving at 300 to 500 miles an hour in a straight line. I mean, all these different things were said at different times. That's why I don't deal with eyewitness testimony, because it changes. Video doesn't. So I'll just stick with the tangible stuff. And I'm not trying to say this to piss anybody off or people to say whatever. The facts are that if you go look at the testimony from each of these pilots and the Wizzos and what have you, that it's changed drastically. Keep in mind, on 60 Minutes, Fravor said that the object disappeared. Now, maybe he misspoke, or maybe he, instead of wasting time on 60 Minutes of explaining the whole thing, just said, oh, disappeared, when he meant to say, oh, it shot over my left wing and went over the horizon, blah, 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 which may have took up more time. Who knows? Who knows what the answer is? That to me makes more sense. But he said it disappeared, which is very close to what he said originally, that it disappeared into the haze. It was a clear day, but yes, there's still haze on clear days. So don't say to me that all of their stories match. They don't. Navy Command knew it was an Air Force test. Yes, they did. God. Well, I can't even see right now. That light is so bright. Will we pay $2 million tax dollars to study hot tubs if they help people relax? God, hopefully it'll help me relax, because I'm ready to go get in the hot tub right now. Here's what I'm gonna do. We're gonna drop this down because I got stuff to do. Over the next, I'll try to release some tomorrow. I've been holding off on doing some or releasing certain videos for one reason or another. I think it's important that people take a look at some things. The other day on another channel, I think, I can't remember the name of the damn channel. Something check. Alpha check. Alpha_check. There's a lot of people out there that are doing really good work, and they are looking at a lot of the same things that I have looked at in the past. So they're kind of going down the right path, and I greatly appreciate that. And I want to help them out. So if any of them watch this, I know Dan wants to probably jump on me for all the social experiment stuff, and I get it. I understand it. I can take the heat, no big deal. But there's a lot of information that I'm willing to give other researchers. Just contact me, and I'll tell you what a lot of that is. You can take it and do with it what you want, but it might help you narrow down some of the rabbit holes that you're probably going to end up in, because there's a lot of rabbit holes in San Clemente Island that you might end up in, especially if you start zooming in very close on some of these things. And I won't go into it right now, but there's a lot of stuff that's very mysterious on that island. And is it connected to Tic Tac? Yes, absolutely. It's connected to Tic Tac. So is St. Nicholas Island. And also, in a very weird roundabout way, if you go back to November 14th, 2004, when the Tic Tac event occurred, and go forward 2 days to November 16th, which they were still seeing apparently Tic Tacs around that time, you will see that the Air Force was testing the, I think it was X-43, and that is an object that went Mach 10.5 on that date. It was the third launch. First one was successful, second one wasn't. The third launch, which was the one done on November 16th, was successful. So right around the same time frame. Is it related? Maybe. Go take a look. So anyway, didn't the female pilot also say she's seen the object as well? Yes, she did see the object, but she said that the object was moving at 300 to 500 miles an hour in a straight line, and Fravor said it was bouncing all over the place. I can pull those. What I'll do is let me let you know what the videos are going to be. Each video about the 3 videos from TTSA will go into details about what these people said, and it will show their actual statements, including something that was originally redacted. I have the unredacted version, and I will probably show that unless it's going to get me in trouble. So Magic, there, as far as it being connected to the Tic Tac being connected to the X-43 event, stay tuned. There might be a connection, might not be. It has to go. It goes back to Edwards, which is where the B-52 took off from, and also that training area with the NOTAMs and some other things that were put in place brings up some other questions. If and I'll go ahead and give you part of the cat out of the bag, not Schrodinger's cat, but this is a whole different cat. If they're testing this X-43 project in this area, and it's an object that goes to Mach 10.5, and they cleared the entire area, NOTAMs are put out, which is basically the FAA saying you can't fly here. If all of these things were done, and yet these objects were still showing up, and no one did anything to clear the area of these Tic Tacs, why not? It'd be like SpaceX had a launch today. I was going to go to it, but I didn't. The CRS mission, CRS-22 to this. I have whatever seats for SpaceX. Anyway, so I didn't go, but they issue a NOTAM for that whole area. You can't fly anything. I mean, I can fly my drone because I get special permission to, but you can't fly drones. You can't have a boat in that area, whatever. And they make certain that it's clear, or else they don't launch a rocket. So what happened, back then in 2004? Why wasn't certain things cleared out? Maybe because I'll leave it at that. So what about the UFO spotted off the coast of Florida? I'm in Florida. They're seen at their naval station, Jacksonville. I used to live right next to Naval Station Jack. You have NAS Jacks. You got this original home of the Blue Angels and so forth. But there's a very good reason why these objects are seen in training areas. And I'll tell you part of that reason is because not necessarily the Air Force is testing. Back in 2004, yes, it was mostly the Air Force testing some of their own technology as well. 2015, completely Navy testing their own technology, which right there, it says it on October 2014, the Navy bought the DRFMs, and of course they're going to test them. And where would you test them? During a training exercise, so people aren't going to be shooting down your DRFMs. And it's not pronounced DRFM, by the way. It's pronounced DRFM. So if you hear me, I'll transpose those two words, but you'll hear people say DRFMs, and that's what they're referring to as DRFMs. Is they just say DRFMs. You're in Florida. Where at? I'm in Lakeland, and I'm very familiar with Florida. I used to live in Jacksonville. I used to live in Tallahassee. My daughter lives in Panama City, and Carol Baskin lives in Tampa, and I used to live in Tampa as well. So I go to Tampa quite often to work on Tiger King. So you're in Fort Myers, okay? Yeah, you're not too far. So maybe we'll see each other one day, and I'll buy you a beer or two. Anyway, guys, I'm going to wrap this up. It is going on midnight, so I've been at this for about 3 hours. I will let you know next Tuesday, I will be on a podcast called Dudes and Beer. That's Christopher Jordan's channel. So I'll be on that. And also I may be on a certain television show next Thursday. I can't say it yet until it actually comes through. But it'll be a national news. And the day that the report comes out, I'm going to drop several videos, most likely, if depending on what the report says. So you'll see that. So stay tuned, and we'll go from there. I appreciate everybody coming by. I appreciate the moderators. Thank you, CL, Jeff, and Justin, and Jeff Fudner, and all my Vegas crew coming in here and dealing with some of the UFO stuff. It's still interesting for everybody. It's a cool subject to learn a lot about. But there's a lot of buzz that's going around for no reason. And if Jeremy Corbell or George Knapp or anybody from TTSA, they want to talk or say something, that's fine. You know what information I have. You know what I'm probably about to drop. So if you want to talk about that before I do it, you're more than welcome to give me a call. You got my number. Talk to you guys later. Have a good night. Hey, Bear. If you guys want another date during the week to have a kind of a Vegas chat get together, I can do this and set it up. So just like we were doing on InServe or whatever, or just like the clown was doing. If you guys want that, let me know. I'll piece that together and we'll pick a date and time and every week, because sometimes on the weekend it's difficult for some people, because the weekend's a weekend, to stop what you're doing and to do that. But if you want a date during the week, let me know and I can make that work. Don't take anything that I say personal on Twitter. It's a troll account if you haven't noticed. Yes, I have. I noticed, and then I figured out that after I answered some of your things. So yes, thank you, McGriddle. Can you DM on Twitter some info before it's released? I won't leak it. Probably the best thing to do is to I'm going to specifically do things to piss people off because I'm good at it and because certain people need to be pissed off. So if someone does something unknowingly, or they make a mistake, or they're doing something and because they think something is real and then they find out later that it isn't, I'm not going to go after that type of a person. That's not something, because it wasn't malicious in nature. If someone thinks something, if someone believes something and then they later find out it's not, everything they said during the time that they believe something is not something you should hold against them. It's like, hey, I'm glad you now finally see the light, or whatever you want to call it. Because they do the same thing to me. They're like, Mike, you're an idiot. Maybe one day you'll see that, or you'll come do this or whatever. No, I'm very comfortable with where I'm at. They're comfortable with where they are. But once it's clear that your stance is wrong, you got to come clean. I did. And I get ridiculed for it all the time. Aren't you the guy that said you're flown a Tic Tac and blah, blah, blah? Yeah, I'm that guy. I damn sure am. And I did that for a reason. And here I am. And yeah, it worked. It worked exactly as I needed it to work. The unfortunate byproduct was it kind of screwed up a couple of friendships to a degree, but otherwise it did work. And the understanding that I got from it was important. It was also going to be, I can't say that. I can say part of it. The information I was trying to acquire was being worked into a documentary. It was kind of like I was going to be a spy. Absolutely. To try, not necessarily a spy, but to get into a position to where the information exchange would be more open. And that way we could study this psychology of it all. That's all it was. Anyway, appreciate you guys. I will talk to you later. And I'm trying to think what else. No, that's it. Anyway, Jack Sarfatti, I appreciate you being on the show. He's always a fun person to listen to. Has a lot of great information. And man, what a life he's led to, right? I mean, that's amazing. Anyway, appreciate everybody. I'm going to end the broadcast in 10, 9, 8, 7. Thank you all for being here. Much love to all. Talk to you later. Have a good night.